Rick Dangerous is arguably one of the most important 8-bit computer games of all time, and it's a little bit overlooked and perhaps now forgotten about, despite fondly being loved by a hardcore fanbase who grew up with it and played through all its devious traps. It's more clever than people give it credit for too, and it's also the very first and original game from Core Design, who of course went on to create Tomb Raider and make most of the games in that famous franchise. I mean, need I say more? Well, Rick was the game that started it all, the original Tomb Raider himself. And here we're going to tell the story of the making of the game, with the help of the man who designed, drew and helped code the game, Simon Phipps. And I was delighted when he agreed to do my very first in-person interview with his lovely wife Jane accompanying him. We sat down for well over an hour in a suitably old-fashioned pub and went through everything, including his career, hobbies, other games and more, and I'll at some point release the entire length video, which patrons and members of the Am Squad will get first, of course. And Simon's an absolutely lovely bloke and I can't thank him enough. Now, I've edited the interview down into relevant bits to tell the story for both Rick Dangerous 1 and 2, with some interesting design documents Simon found from his archives for me, and we'll look at all the computer versions of both games for comparison too. And you'll notice this is a very long video, and that's because after the making of with Simon, there's a double-header long play and review of Rick Dangerous 1 and 2 on the Amstrad CPC. So if you're only interested in that, the Amstrad Longplays, which have been the bread and butter of my channel usually, you can skip ahead to the 2 hours 50 minutes 3 second mark on the video. Anyway, let's get started, shall we, with an overview of the Rick games. The Rick Dangerous series consists of 2 games with a hint of a possible third game when you complete the second, which sadly never materialised. Both games are action-adventure platformers with a hint of puzzling and memory testing, with you learning where those fiendish traps are. It's really well designed, and if you think and look carefully enough, there are perhaps enough hints as to where those traps are, and you can use them to your advantage to take out your enemies instead. Although arguably later on, those hints start to dry up, and near the end it's left to chance which route is safe and what is instant death, and that did leave some people feeling frustrated. The first game takes blatant inspiration from Indiana Jones, capitalising on the fact that the home computers of the time never actually got a Raiders of the Lost Ark game, and the official indie games weren't much good. Weirdly, there wasn't many indie rip-off games trying to do the same things Rick was either, so Simon and his team cleverly exploited this unbelievably gaping gap in the market right at the time of the new Last Crusade movie that had just come out. The second game instead takes a bit more inspiration of the sci-fi movies and comics of the 50s and 60s with an alien invasion plot. Funnily enough, a little bit like the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull did many years later, but we don't talk about that film. Anyway, it was wise to freshen things up for the sequel because whilst the basic gameplay was still the same, the level and trap design was much better and less frustrating, and we now had bombs you could slide. Plus, there was now vehicle sections with Rick's anti-gravity bike to ride on. It was just bigger and better. What was brilliant about Rick was all the ingenious ways traps could be interacted with, whether it be rolling boulders, moving blocks to allow you to get to another section, Egyptian mummies being resurrected from tombs, escaping crushers, sending barrels to squash Nazis. You had to play around and figure it out, and it wasn't easy for the coder getting it working, especially on 8-bit computers. Now that's impressive stuff. Aside from the innovative gameplay and traps, who could forget that brilliant wah sound? But best of all is the gorgeous graphics and animation that was consistent across all the computer versions, and we have our man to thank for that, Simon Phipps. So we're with Simon Phipps. Thank you so much for chatting with us today.
You're welcome.
And we're in the Salutation Inn in Nottingham in the Cromwell Suite.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Simon, growing up, were comics and computer games your favourite thing?
1981, I'm around at my friend Phil's house, and he's like, "This is what me and my dad have built with a kit from an electronics magazine." So like, you know, kind of electronics today or whatever. It was 1K ZX81, black and white. You hit the a key to update the screen, it would burst to static and redraw it because it was so limited. But you had a version of Space Invaders on there which had letters for all of the things and bullets and stuff like that. And I was like, that's stuff on the screen. I was like, Phil, can you actually make these change what these things look like? And he said, well, so you could maybe change the A's to a H or a W. I was like, you could make this into art somehow or other. So from that point on, I just wanted a computer, and it was like I can get my art to move. So I wanted an Acorn Electron, which was the kind of colour computer at the time.
Sorry, just apologies to everyone. We've got a giant bin lorry just like making a racket behind us at the moment.
Yeah. So I've spent an awful lot of my past few years actually drawing truck liveries for the game that I've been working on with Three Fields Entertainment, and I can recognise all the techniques and illustrate the stuff that they're using on that livery there, kind of thing. I cannot drive the motorway without noticing it. So anyway, aside from the truck in the background,
just typical.
Yeah. So anyway, I'd seen Phil's ZX81. It blew me away. I wanted an Acorn Electron because it was the colour computer that you could get. And there was the BBC Micros just on the horizon for spring '82. It was like my parents kind of like, oh, can I get one? So I saved loads of money from my paper round, and then my mum and dad added to it. So on my birthday in May of '82, my 16th birthday, I got a BBC Model A.
Oh wow.
I was like, right, okay, then what can I do? So it was like immediately I got the colour microcomputer, which I had to run for about 11 months on my aunt's old black and white telly until I could afford a monitor, which I got for Christmas. And basically was like, okay, then I can draw some stuff on the screen, which was kind of cool. All these vibrant colours, which I couldn't see because the shades are grey at the time, but they lived in my head. And taught myself how to learn, write BASIC. And then from then on, the next thing was put little characters in them, use keys to move them around, and then basically replicate the arcade games that I played. So I made my own little version of Pac-Man, my own version of Lander, all of that sort of thing.
All the classics.
What do you call it, Snake, all of those sort of things. And in doing so, started making games. And then time went on, and I was kind of in this situation where I wanted to do colour sprites. One of the great things about BBC Micro is the fact that you could not only put BASIC into the thing, you could actually add 6502 assembler machine code within the BASIC and have them talk to one another. So I wrote some little sprite routines in 6502 assembler to plot them, and so I then had colour sprites like all the Acorn games that they had bouncing around, and started writing a little game where you took a guy with a jetpack, and that was inspired by, I'd seen Jetpack from ATG, Ultimate Play the Game.
Sure.
And stuff. Thought, oh, I'd like to make a little jetpack game, and basically you had a little guy that flew across the screen, picked up a fuel pellet, and then had to drop it off at a little flying saucer that came to various different levels. So I did this sort of platform game. Was working on this little game. One of my friends from school, a chap named Stu Gregg, who eventually ended up going on to the games industry, worked for US Gold, then eventually worked with Core, used to come around of an evening, and he used to turn around and went, why don't you stick that on a tape and send it off? I'm like, it's no, seriously. So I took this little jetpack game, put it on a tape, sent it off to ANF Software and Micropower. ANF came back and said, oh, I'm sorry, it's not 100% machine code, we can't copy protect it, piracy and all that. I was like, okay. But Micropower said, oh, here's a list of 10 things we'd like to, if you could change those, we'll publish it. I was like, okay. So I made the 10 changes, it came out, then the Electron came out, and we did a conversion of that. And so there I was kind of like doing my A-levels, and and I got a game in the BBC Micro Top 10 charts of Jet Power Jack.
Wow, fantastic. That must have been quite a thrill. So you were about 16 years old at the time?
Yeah, sort of, so between 16 and 18 kind of thing. So
and you had a game in the top 10?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And at the same time, I was also, I got a Saturday job working at First Byte Computers in Derby. So working in a computer shop, so you're exposed to, here's all the hardware, here's the computers and all the latest games, and getting to hang out with the guys that were regulars in the store as well, kind of thing. So we got to know each other.
That must have been incredibly exciting.
Oh, it was brilliant. So it was that kind of thing that, you know, you were kind of really in touch with when the next games were coming in. There was, you know, all this new hardware, everything from like the Oric 1 to the BBC Micro and stuff like that kind of coming in and everything. And so you've got this buzz of guys that were kind of regulars as well coming into the store. About, oh, we're making one of these, we've been playing that and everything. Some of the guys that I'd known through at First Byte, they'd actually gone off and got together, and some of them made Bounder on the Commodore 64.
Oh yes, the bouncy ball game, Gremlin.
Going
Yes.
in and out of the screen.
Yeah.
They'd written that entirely in a monitor on the Commodore 64. So rather than an assembler where you type in mnemonics and something that resembles language, they were literally hand coding it, so you're typing the numbers directly into the memory and then executing that. So it was, here's the logic, write it down, convert that by hand into numbers, and they did the whole game like that.
Good
which was
grief.
so impressive. They then got recruited by Gremlin. Terry Lloyd, who at the time had been a regular in the store, then became ended up working at First Byte and was like adept at graphics and stuff like that. He got recruited by the guys at Gremlin. So by I came out, it was 87, 84, 85, 86, so 87. I finished my Polytechnic stuff and went and got a little job in Long Eaton, which is my hometown, working a little company called Lasermaker, where they make desktop publishing software. And it was the most boring 5 months of my life. I was like, oh, this is going to be graphical. I was just sat in this chilly little cube farm, just working in BCPL, writing what was a mouse interface for a big typesetting system that was all command line based or whatever. Absolutely tedious, but I was kind of like, you're making money, making things on computers, however dull it was. And then somewhere out of the blue, I got a phone call from Mike Terry. He said, oh, are you still drawing art on computers? I was like, yeah. He said, well, I need some help. We're doing Masters of the Universe, the movie, the computer game. Would you be interested in coming and helping us out with the graphics? I was like, yeah, all right then, thinking, oh, I've got a little bit of freelance gig. So I put together a little disc with some art that I'd drawn up, went over to see the guys, met the team that were at Gremlin's little Derby office. There was like 8 guys there, and Kevin Norman, who had set up one of the founders of Gremlin, showed them what to do, and they went, do you want a job? I was like, what? So came home, and Jane was my fiance by that point. I'm like, okay then, what should we, what do you think? Shall I go into this games thing, because making games isn't actually a real job, or do I carry on the business computers? It was like, well, you might as well give it a go, because if it goes out the window, 6 months from now, you've had the experience, you can go back to serious computing. So, Master of the Universe, we were working on various different versions for, I think it was Atari and Amiga, Commodore 64, Amstrad and Spectrum, I think was the series of things. And I was working purely as a graphic artist at that point. I can remember we had like an Operation Wolf type sort of shootout section. And I can remember distinctly, we need some graphics for the Spectrum version. And I ended up working on a Spectrum, on a rubber keyboard, drawing graphics with one of the art packages. And I was like, this is just torture. And I think there was another point where it was like, can you use a joystick-based art package or something or other to assemble something on the Commodore 64? And I was like, this isn't working. So I'd kind of come in with my Atari, drawing in all the art, and I spoke to Andy Green, who was our coder on the Atari versions and all that. I was like, Andy, what do I need to do to basically open up the machine so I can just code it, kind of thing. He said, well, okay, then there's basically about 12 lines of code, about 3 trap statements or something like that, going back to a long while, which basically shut down all of the kind of hardware kind of interrupts and things that were just, and it basically turned the Atari into just giant bag of memory that you could just go ham with the X68000. So my first thing was, I'm going to write some utilities. So utilities that meant that I never had to touch any rubbery keys or weird art packages ever again, because I've been drawing all of my art on the Atari ST in a package by Rainbow called OCP Art Studio, which had a wonderful kind of system for doing multiple sprites. You could mock up sort of like blocks and maps and things like that, different size sprites, animate them and everything. It was delightful, perfect software. So I was like, actually, if I draw all my stuff on the Atari, if I do the for the Spectrum, I do black and white graphics, just do black and white masks and black and white sprites that will just sandwich together. For the Amstrad, I'll draw them in fat pixel mode in 16 colours. Commodore 64, fat pixel mode in 3 colours, all that kind of stuff. Then I don't have to go off or whatever, and I can give the coders exactly what they need in the format they want. So I started writing my own kind of graphics utility. So basically, I could just have a thing where I'd put in some named files, press a button, and it would just output whatever data they needed for whatever sprite packages. So I was like, this is cool. So all the way through, once I think it was kind of like, that was kind of late Masters of the Universe going on to, which was the next game was Escape Crazy, that I was involved in, was writing those utilities at work. And then of course, in my spare time, I'm like, I'd really like to write a game. So I basically started writing a map editor, which would allow me to create a giant map inspired by Underworld. I always was fascinated by, here's a huge wide-ranging map. Basically, it was a flick screen game, and you could have, if I remember rightly, it was 256 screens and arrange them in a thing. So I was writing kind of map editor in the background. You've got a map editor, you've got a world, you can then start running little sprites around, and then that's what started my work on the game called Switchblade, which I wrote for the Atari ST. So I am working for 18 months in the background writing Switchblade, which is an entirely kind of like me just going, this is how I'm going to learn how to make games on the Atari.
And that was entirely your own project. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when was that started? Do you remember what year?
So that would have been probably late 87, early 88 kind of thing. So it was literally as I started Gremlin, I started writing the utilities for it. And so the funny thing was, I'm learning to code along the way. I'm then at Gremlin doing things like, say, Master the Universe, then Skate Crazy, then do the conversion of Knight Raider. And my coding is starting to build up. And then we got to a certain point where Gremlin hit a cash flow crisis, and they turned around to those lads in Derby and said, well, we're going to have to close the office down. We're offering you redundancy, or you can move to Sheffield. And it's like, do we fancy, like in the 80s, doing an hour's commute to Sheffield, an hour's commute back, sort of thing. This is the days before GPS, mobile phones, and very inefficient cars. And we were like, no, it's all right, we're not going to do that. And so basically, Gremlin's sales manager, Jeremy Smith, and one of Gremlin's founders, Kevin Orban, along with our office manager, Greg Holmes, came to us and said, well, we're thinking of forming a company. If you want, you can work here for us in the same office, which was this little office in Saxon House. And so Core Design was formed from there. And then the next question was, who's up for making, what are our next titles going to be? And one of the things was I volunteered. I'm getting quite competent at coding. If you want, I'll volunteer. So I actually started coding full time as well as doing graphics, whilst I was still coding Switchblade in the background.
So, Rig Dangerous, how did that come to be then? Who had the bright idea and started the design?
Right, so we core design had just been formulated out of our little Gremlin team, and we needed some ideas for new games to pitch. And so the idea was that Jeremy was going to go out there and see if we could get some publishers to give us some work. So one of the teams ended up doing a conversion of Action Fighter from the Sega Master System to the Atari ST and Amiga. Amiga? Certainly Atari ST, not quite sure about the Amiga.
It on the Amstrad and Spectrum as well.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. And we were also, do you have any ideas? So it was basically myself and Terry Lloyd sitting down one afternoon with some big piece of paper, and it was a case of, right, let's write down everything that's been done lately or is in current, because you don't want to be doing something somebody else has done. So like swords and sorcery and secret agents and all the various different genres. And I can distinctly remember Black Tiger had just come out from Capcom, so that was like swords and sorcery, forget it. And we're kind of going through, and I remember us sitting there, what's never been done before, like a proper Indiana Jones game. We'd had some, I think there's some arcade games, a couple of computer games at that time, but they were quite measured, and they weren't sort of the spirit of Harrison Ford being chased by a boulder, being beset by blow darts and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, we ought to do something like that.
It's crazy that hasn't really been done.
No,
about it.
Exactly, sort of thing. And it was that spirit of that very early, the first section of Raid the Lost Ark, we were running out of the tomb, and it was like, okay, we could do a platform game, because say the guys that I was working with, they'd done sort of some of the Monty Mold spin-offs, like Monty on the Run, I think it was, and the Jack the Nipper stuff and everything like that sort of thing. So those kind of platformers were in our blood anyway, and experience. And it was like, well, if we take sort of elements of that, but we come up with a trap system that could do all of these things. So it's like, started talking, and well, actually, we could do some, blow darts, we could do some spike pits and all this kind of stuff. And it kind of quite quickly was a conversation that Terry and I had about a variety of different sort of traps and things, and how you could do them, because you didn't want to be programming a blow dart, a spike pit, or whatever. Could you actually create a system which would allow you to do a lot of all this sort of stuff with a very small amount of code and just a bit of data? And so I had this idea when we were talking about it. It was like, well, I'll tell you what, you have a box on the screen and a sprite that's somewhere on the screen. The sprite starts in a state which is either invisible or visible. It can start in a state where it is harmless, it's deadly, or it's solid. And then basically when the box on the screen gets activated, it switches this into a movement table, an animation table, and changes its state. So you can have invisible static blow darts that when you walk into the box, they turn deadly visible and fly off the screen. Or you can have fireballs that do the same, or a spike pit appears and becomes deadly, or you can have a spike pit which is there from the start, is deadly, that you can move away, patterns of things and triggering them. And then this idea of Rick's body would trigger them. You could then fire a bullet to shoot something, which would trigger at something at a distance. You could place down dynamite to blow stuff up, but also meant you could trigger something at a distance in time. And then we'd originally thought of like a punch, but it was like, actually, if we make him a stick, you could do something with that. There are some drawings, I think, in the little design page where we're like, oh, you could maybe pole vault with a stick, and it's like, the problem is that the stick has to be much bigger, the mechanics of that, so that never happened, but we kept the stick. So you have this, Rick stick, bullet and dynamite kind of thing. And basically over the course of the afternoon, it was me going, right, Terry, what other traps can you come up with, and I'll tell you whether this little system that I formulated in my head makes sense. And we just kept on going, and like, it seems to work. So we scribbled together these kind of, I think it's a piece of A3 paper maybe. There's maybe about 4 or 5 of them, with all these little notes on this is what the sticks would do and all that kind of stuff, and presented that as our first game. And we did a few other little bits and pieces of ideas, but that was the one that kind of won through. Jeremy took it around, and Firebird Software went, on the strength of this flimsy bit of paper, we'll commit to giving you kind of 4 months to code it.
Was this all designed in one afternoon or
several?
Yeah,
it was just in one afternoon.
Wow.
Just this is kind of what we think the game's going to be. and then it was off to the races, and like who's going to...
You even had the name in the same afternoon.
Yeah, which weirdly I hadn't realised, but I'd stolen from Rick Mail many years ago.
Really?
Because actually...
the Dangerous Brothers.
The Dangerous Brothers, Rick and Vivian, wow. Yeah, but I'd just come to, you know, and it's one of those kind of ones where I am sure at some point or other I'd heard it, but when I got to there, it was like, you know, I'd completely forgotten about it. It wasn't until years later I was like, hang on a moment, that's where that came from. So it sort of sat there from the Saturday Live.
But he spelled it R-I-K probably.
That's true, Rick.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's where Rick came from, and it was kind of like, who's up for coding it? So Dave Pridmore took on the Z80 versions and did the Spectrum, Amstrad and the music, and Stu Gregg, he was on Commodore 64, was my school friend. John Kirkland, I think, was joined us by that time, did the PC version, and myself, I did the Amstrad and Atari ST and Amiga versions, and then we had both Robs, Rob Toon and Bob Churchill doing design work kind of thing. So they, although we were kind of all suggesting stuff in there, they did the bulk of the level design, and then what happened was that Terry and I split the graphics stuff. So Terry took on all of the background graphics, I took on all the sprite graphics, and so that's kind of how we worked.
So you all scurried off and all worked on all the different versions all simultaneously? There wasn't like a lead development platform? It
all just sort of, it was one of those kind of ones with a small little tight team, and we just sort of built it up together. I think possibly my stuff kind of led a few days ahead or whatever, but we were all kind of working on our own individual elements. I've got this working, whatever. And then say one of the things that we did do, because we needed to, we recognised that kind of a lot of previous stuff, we'd done a Spectrum and an Amstrad version, a Commodore 64 version and whatever, which meant there was an awful lot of time, particularly with like map design, we've got big scrolling maps and things like that kind of thing. You end up making multiple games. And for this one, we were like, let's make some smart choices. So what we did was we restricted the width of the screen to being 32 characters, 256 pixels, because that's what worked on Spectrum. We restricted it to vertically scrolling on the platforms that could handle it, but flick screen kind of in stages for Spectrum and Amstrad and stuff like that kind of thing. The sprite size is driven by the Commodore 64 being 21 pixels 21 pixels high by 24 pixels wide, or 12 pixels wide on the Amstrad. So the idea was that we could actually optimize the stuff. So what I would do is, like with the sprite graphics, I would draw them for the Atari and the Amiga at 24 by 21, and then go in there in Art Studio, create black and white versions with masks for the Spectrum, fat pixel mode versions that were tweaked for the Amstrad, fat pixel version 3 colours for the Commodore 64, and the Commodore 64 on the main sprite we overlaid a black high-res sprite, so you actually got a little bit more detail in there and stuff. And it was just all about optimizing it, so we didn't end up building stacks and stacks of different versions and burn ourselves out trying to chase all of these sort of things. So that's kind of why it was a contained little kind of thing, that it kind of works across all.
Yeah, I was going to say it's like a constrained framework for all the versions right from the start. So you had that document that said, like, this is going to be what it's going to be like, lads, lasses. This is
So we just sort of went for it, and 4 months in and out. 2 anecdotes that I can kind of relay. One was the first discussion I ever had about game difficulty, because of course this game is punishingly difficult, and there's the whole thing about this. But there was, I can remember, we decided to develop, and this is one of the things, advice to new developers out there, always do your second level first, because you will get bored of that second level. So by the time you get to the first level, you kind of can roll back and make it simpler than the complexity that you've done in the
That's a
second level,
really good tip.
So we actually developed the Egypt level and then went back to the Aztec level, so we stripped out things. So we'd already gone, this is probably more complicated than it needs to be, so we'll strip back, we'll keep it simple. This is a fresh sort of take. But there was a later screen where there's some kind of like double jump, and I can remember the guys had kind of gone, right, well, we've got this thing. You drop into here, and then you jump 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times over to here, back to here, or whatever. And I was like, you've had to tell me how this works. I can't figure it out. How on earth is anybody ever going to figure this out? Sort of thing. I'm like, oh, this something that we eventually rolled back the thing, and it was one of those kind of ones of, and has always stayed in my mind going forwards, because you get so familiar with a game when you're developing it. It's so easy to make it over complex, or you get so used to working around issues within the game, or you just get so good at it that in comparison to when it ships, it's much more difficult or much more obscure than it needs to be. We kind of, that I can remember that as being the very first time we ever talked about game difficulty. And then there's the sound effects with the wah, which that was, we need sound effects, we need something funny. So Terry brought in. See,
there you go. On cue.
On cue. Thank you. Now I'd like some duck sounds and the sound of a grand piano being dropped on a hamster. You can edit that one in. Terry brought in this crappy old condenser tape deck with a condenser mic on it, and one afternoon me and Terry just locked ourselves in the room just going like this, making ridiculous sounds into the mic, because we both did that. And then it was like, let's just pick the funniest sample, and mine ended up being the thing. So that's where the wah came from.
Fantastic.
Sort of thing. So that was there's kind of two standout anecdotes that I can remember from that time, but it really was a in, out, 4 months onto the next one, and we were done. And in fact, actually, it went over to Firebird, and then, unlike probably pretty much every other game I've ever worked on, it wasn't immediately released. And the story that I've been told, and I don't know whether it's apocryphal or not, was, we knew we had something special, so we wanted to hang on to it and hold it off and then release it when we were ready to do so, which is a tremendous compliment. I don't know, that's the story I've come to believe, but it could have been we just didn't have the launch window and we're saying something nice. But there was a situation where we had completed Rick and then moved on to other things, and Rick didn't come out for quite a few months after, whereas most games you come blazing in like you've just assembled the plane and you've landed on fire at JFK in New York after having invented flight, sort of like in the course of 8 hours, sort of thing, or whatever. So that's the story of Rick.
Yeah, I was going to ask actually. You're an independent company of a hot new game. Was it easy finding a publisher in Firebird? I assume they were then part of Micropose, who just bought them from Telecom.
I think so. I'd say we'd.
And were other companies interested in Rick? Had you been shopping it around?
I'd say that was all down to Jeremy sort of coming back, and we just went, here's the thing, and it all sort of came in and went, Firebird want it, so here you go. So I wasn't actually involved in any of the pitching. It was just, we basically just put together this crappy bunch of bits of paper and gone, there you go, and somehow or other they gave us the money to do that. And so I think it was one of those companies.
So Firebird were already in at the start.
Yes, absolutely.
Right,
on the concept of it, sort of thing. So that was the thing.
And then they just held on to it for ages before.
It seemed to be the case. I think it was kind of like 89 it was released, but we'd sort of done it, I guess, probably early 88. I'm just trying to remember.
So were they waiting to release it at Christmas or something like that?
I have no idea. So the story that I'd always been told was we knew we had something special, so we wanted to hold on to it for a while. But that could be apocryphal. I don't know.
Right. Do you know if it sold many copies?
Well, it must have sold enough copies because it warranted as a sequel. The only time I've ever heard about sales figures is when somebody in another department or in power wants to beat you to death with the sales figures that they didn't achieve. As goes, hey guys, this has sold really well, we might give you extra money. Never happened.
Right.
So I've
you
no
don't
idea.
get like bonuses or anything like that. Here's a Christmas bonus because you did so well in like Rick Dangerous.
There was sort of, in the early days, there was sort of things to do with bits of bonuses and royalty, but it was always a bit vague and a bit, because you were working for someone, you weren't having access. Whereas, if you were in a situation where you're an independent developer working for yourself, then you'll be sort of like battering away at the publisher going, I want exactly the sales figures because you'd agreed something or other. But I was on a salary, so it's like, I'm getting paid to make games and that's good enough, and we're managing to do this unlikely job and pay the mortgage. This is unbelievable. So I didn't actually get to see any of that, not that I can remember anyway.
Right.
The one thing about the Rick Dangerous box art was it wasn't what we were expecting. We'd finished the game and done it, sort of thing, and say I'd done the goofy little grotty guy that was there. I mean, he's inspired by a number of things. There was a Spectrum game called I think Joe Blade that had just come out, which I'd seen these little tiny squash kind of characters. Like, oh, that's kind of cool. So that lodged in my brain. And then I was kind of like, as a kid, I really liked the art. There's an Argentinian cartoonist called Mordino who did lots and lots of these gigantic posters that you used to see in like Woolworths and Athena, where you could buy posters from the big spinner rack type things. Of kind of like, it would be a huge ornate Spanish galleon, and it would be dripping with like 200 of these little tiny guys, little tiny cartoon guys fighting it out or whatever. So I think it was those two things kind of came together in the art style for Rick, with these goofy little tiny pudgy sort of characters. But yeah, kind of like did it all sort of cartoony, and then one day the box turned up, and I've still got the original box, which just turned up without any other context. Like, there you go, and you're like, this doesn't look a thing like what we've made. Okay, I can kind of understand why they kind of go for it, because it's like leaning into the, hey mum, it's an Indiana Jones game. That's going to be much more exciting than sort of somebody's creepy uncle in a sweaty little leather jacket kind of character that Rick in the game is, which was quite peculiar. The thing that was really great though was when we did Rick Dangerous 2, they went back to the original artist and did the version of the box art for Rick 2 in the same style, so at least there was that kind of consistency, and you go, okay, this is what he looks like on the box art, there we do. But no, I didn't do that. I think about 2016 I actually did a print of Rick kind of thing, and I've just recently finished painting him again for something, so it's nice to go back with art skills that I really didn't have back then, to be able to kind of realise him as a character in the painting.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh, and the other little piece as well, which was a complete thrill and unexpected, the final versions of the games arrived, and opened the box, and therein it was this comic book by Ian Gibson, who was the guy who did Robo Hunter for 2000 AD, one of my cartoon heroes reading 2000 AD as a kid kind of thing. It was like, like that. And from that came the fat guy who became the bad guy for the second movie, because there wasn't a villain in the first one.
Wow.
So that was really, really cool.
Excellent. So quickly, don't shoot the messenger here, right? But Rick Dangerous's famous traps.
Yes.
This is just me gathering other people's opinions from elsewhere over the years, right?
Yeah.
The game, it can divide opinions. Some say the traps are, fiendishly fun, and you just have to experience and learn the game. It's meant to be harder than a challenge. Others point out that the clues, you do get clues early in the game.
Yeah.
That's great. To where potential traps are, they kind of disappear later in the game in later levels. It becomes later levels becomes a bit of a random potluck chance at times.
Yeah, there's not a little snake on the wall or a little thing or whatever. And
it comes a bit like, oh my god, what do you do here? And it's like with 3 routes to go. Yeah. Which one do you choose? Then that's death, that's safe, sort of thing. Unless you visited the screens before and learned, you know from memory where a trap is. Some point out, that's not good game design. Right. So that's
no,
not,
it's all right. It's
me.
a complete valid thing, and I apologise for every broken joystick and smashed CRT televisions throughout the 80s. The simple fact is,
what do you think? So
it's perfectly valid opinions on both sides, and it was basically we didn't know what we were doing. So back then, the arcades, as you say, looking back on hindsight, and this is one of those kind of ones where we kind of made a game, we thought, well, let's put it out, and it's only years later you get to evaluate what it was doing and why it worked and or why it drove people nuts. We came out of the arcades, and the arcade machines are designed to get you on for the shortest possible period of time to boot you off to put more 10p's or quarters into the machine. So the idea of you step into a screen, you get touched by a sprite and you die was kind of a fundamental of kind of 80s gameplay. So we had that. We had the experience of collectively of making games like the Jack the Nipper series and the Monty Moles and stuff like that kind of thing, which were also in that manic miner kind of thing where you have a little character, he does a jump and he can move around and do things. And on the screen are deadly objects that move around and you touch them and you die. So that was kind of like locked in. This is what a platform game is. Now, the thing that we'd missed when we were doing the trap system and kind of just completely just sidestepped unwittingly was in things like Manic Miner and Mario and all of the other platform games. The idea is that you have this object on the screen, it is moving along with a predictable pattern, and it's all about, I move to here, and then do I get the timing to do it, or whatever. Fundamentally, we've got those things, but instead of doing that, there are invisible boxes hidden around the screen that when you step on, bam, they come on, and that's what they're going to do. And that's kind of because we were leaning into the Raiders sort of thing, that's what we did. And of course, as you're playing the game, as you're making the game, you know where all those invisible boxes are. You can see them, and this is something I've carried forward through for all gaming from forever. Is that as a maker, you'll always you can see the matrix, even because you've laid it down there. You know there is invisible volumes. You can kind of just predict and feel or whatever, like that kind of thing. Coming to it as a player, you have no knowledge of this, so things just come flapping at you and stuff like that. So we'd created this game that stepped outside of the bounds of what was the standard platform play by throwing all these things at you, which can be absolutely brutally punishing because it's got all of that sort of stuff, or hilarious and rewarding and fun depending on how much you're exposed to it. And so it wasn't until many years later, because I sort of made this game and then you go, well, and this has been the sort of thing, I never expected anybody to remember the game much after 2 weeks after it came out. Any of the games that I've made, you just go, I've gone, right, we're on to the next one. That's out there, what's the next thing coming along? And then gradually over the years, people started to write to me, and I sort of got this realization that weirdly, we had taken the trappings of a platform game but actually created a memory test, muscle reflex memory kind of trial and error sort of base game, which was both an absolute winner for the people that could master it and loved it, but absolutely brutally punishing and smack you over the head and repeatedly kick you into the dirt if you didn't. And so it was this kind of like, sort of intense gameplay Marmite, but it did generally make people laugh. And so somehow or other that's done it. So yeah, I can wholeheartedly both apologise and also turn around and go, I'm very, very proud of what we did. But it was always because of the fact that we just sort of instinctively worked our way through, and we ended up with this kind of gameplay, which has never not been presented in quite that way, because we were just sort of thinking, oh yeah, this is kind of like Pitfall or something like that, where you're an adventurer and you're kind of dodging traps and all this kind of stuff. We didn't actually really quite know what we made. But for some reason or other, 3-4 decades later, he still gets mentioned, which is kind of I'm just so grateful for and so blown away for.
Exactly. At least it's memorable at the very least.
Yes, sort of thing.
It's new, interesting, different.
So I'm sorry, not sorry for all of those broken joysticks and all this kind of stuff or whatever.
That's a brilliant answer.
Grateful for the memories that it's created, and actually, probably a slight adjunct. I had an experience only this summer. I've been invited to the Passion Amiga event in Spoleto in Italy. The Italian Amiga fans had contacted me and said, we'd love you to come out and speak to us and meet you after all these years. We love the games that you made. So I was like, okay, well, I've got the time, I shall go out there. And I met a load of these guys who were united over their love for the Amiga. They're keeping the games alive, just like you're doing with the Amstrad. They're keeping the hardware going. They're preserving the memory of these games. They're still playing them on the original hardware, on the original discs. And I've always been grateful for these folks that have come to me and said, I loved your games or whatever, sort of thing, and always done my best to respond and reply, because I know it's a big deal, and I've over the years come to realise that I kind of like make memories for people where I'd gone, oh, I like this particular song, or I can remember this particular book. For some people, it's that summertime where you and your mates got together with some tapes, some of them you'd copied and things like that, and you all huddled around and played it. And it's like I've had the privilege of entertaining people that I've never met in ways that I did, and created memories for them, and that's just a tremendous privilege, because I was just making fun stuff. And what the time I spent in Italy this summer also reinforced for me, which is a thing that I really never expected. 30 years or whatever since I've made these games, I got grown men coming to me and embracing me like a brother and going, I love what you did, could you sign a box and all this kind of stuff, with such warmth and everything. And it just hit me like a rock. And it's something that I hadn't realised and was completely unexpected, was when you're making these games, you're actually putting joy out into the world, and love and friendship and opportunities for connection and stuff like that. And we really did not know. And then this sort of afternoon, this few days in Spoleto, all of a sudden, many years after doing it, having gone, right, I'm retiring from full-time games making, all of that stuff comes back to you. It was really moving, and I was kind of like really flattened by it, because it was kind of like I'd connected people, through the stuff the work that I'd done, and the guys that made the games at the time we did do. We kind of created these friendships that have lasted for a lifetime, or have been renewed because of a love of the stuff. I was even told the story of a guy who lost his brother and went up into the attic, brought out the Amiga, dusted all the old games off, and now played them, because that reminded him of the time that he spent with his brother, where they were kids playing together. And it was like, that's profound, and that's amazing, and it's such a privilege to have been involved in all this kind of stuff. And so whilst kind of for all of my career, I've always been thinking, what's the next thing? I can't dwell on what's past, because if this, no matter what I've done prior to this, if this game doesn't work, I can't make games anymore or whatever like that. I'm only going to be judged on the last thing that I ever did. So you never take it for granted. You kind of like, yeah, bank it, move on. But now kind of coming to the other side of it and looking back and going, wow, this was a hell of a journey. And then seeing all of these wonderful little moments and things that you've been privileged to create for people and entertain them and bring all that joy. It's quite wonderful, and actually is a lovely sort of thing to now be in a situation where I've got the time to take people like yourself and other folks to connect up and talk about these things, whilst also having the privilege of seeing our work preserved and celebrated, because as I said earlier, it's you never expected these things to last. It was the length of the computer, maybe a couple of years afterwards, but at that point there'll be another Mega Drive, there'll be another Nintendo or whatever, sort of thing or whatever and stuff. And up until I worked on, say, the Harry Potter series in 2000, you get into a taxi, oh, you make computer games, what do you make? Mario, Sonic Hedgehog, no. Rick Dangerous, never heard of them, or whatever. And it was only once that all of that kind of apprenticeship working on those other games got me to working on sort of some of the big hitters that you could talk about it. But interestingly now, the folks that remember those weird little obscure things that we made in that little tiny office in Derby are the ones that I get asked most about, which is quite wonderful.
Yeah, what a lovely thing to say. That was wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, what a lovely anecdote there.
You're welcome. No, it is that sort of thing of, I know what it. There are certain things that mean a lot to me. I love Batman. I love Star Wars. I've had the opportunity to meet some people that were involved in making Star Wars, spend time with them and go, that's really cool. And it's like, I must, always be in touch with that and remember that. So when somebody writes to me and goes, I've got a question, how was this kind of thing? It's like, I want to be able to give some of that back because I know what it means, sort of thing and stuff. And it is that sort of stuff of, you kind of in your own little way, you go, actually, for some people, some of the crazy things that we built are those kind of things. They're that song that defines that particular moment in time where you met someone, you're having a great time, or you were with your dad or your mum or your brother or your sister, all of that sort of thing. We were just,
when we had a break, I was just chatting to your lovely Jane here, which we were just talking, weren't we? I was just saying, I've mentioned this in a video once on my channel before as well, so some of my subscribers will know about this, but we describe your computer or that game, specifically maybe a computer or a console or even a movie, when you were growing up as a little boy or a little girl, those things are a fixed point. I call them a fixed point of happiness in your childhood.
Yes.
So if you had a crummy childhood growing up, when you got bullied at school, when you came home, that computer or console was always there waiting for you, or that comic book, or that movie, or that favourite song on that cassette you could put in your cassette player, or your guitar, or whatever it was. Or if you're talking specifically about games, Rick Dangerous, load it up on your Amstrad or your Spectrum or Amiga or Atari ST, that was always there waiting for you when you came home, whether you had crappy parents or you're a single parent family or whatever, you had tough times, that was always there waiting for you to load up. So you have that memory, and that's it's that warm comfort that you can look back on. It's always that fixed point of happiness. You know what I mean? So that's why people come together now, especially when we got through lockdown.
Oh yes.
And we were all in lockdown. I think that's why a lot of these podcasts or live streams or YouTube channels kind of exploded a little bit, because people started to connect a little bit more and wanted to reminisce and talk about these things and make these connections with other people, sort of thing. So when someone mentions Rick Dangerous, I remember Rick Dangerous, and all that kind of stuff, and because you have those warm memories, and that's how people can start connecting with each other a little bit more. Because that will never change. Those memories are there fixed.
Yes.
No one can take that away from you.
Yeah.
Whether you love Batman or Star Wars, like you said, and that's there.
No, that's a very, very good point.
Because you wouldn't have recognised that when you were making the game.
No, absolutely.
I think you were a little bit lucky than perhaps some other people in the industry. Perhaps you worked at US Gold or Ocean, which was a little bit more of a game factory.
Yes,
3 weeks, game done, move on. 2 weeks, next game. That has to be done in 2 weeks, move on.
Yeah.
You were a little bit more of a smaller independent company where you could take time to maybe design the game and maybe.
It was
put a little bit more love.
Yeah, it was one of those kind of ones where we were just running at full speed, but there was just sort of an energy for those first.
But still, years, you just had to move on to the next game, didn't you? But you didn't really have a chance to sort of sit in and go, I've made this wonderful, beautiful product, and I'm so wonderful.
It's all right.
It wasn't the case, was it?
So we did a we did St Greaves' football trivia quiz game, which is the highlight of my career. We did it in 10 weeks for Grand Slam. I did all the art for it, for all 5 versions. Did it in 10 weeks. I did the Atari and Amiga. Dave Pridmore did the Z80 versions. Kev Norman had to type in 2,000 football trivia quiz questions. June the 2nd, 1989, I have this one standing by my desk at 5:30 going, this better go go onto that disc now because the wedding's off tomorrow, and literally they went gold. Was Jane standing at the desk like I had to get out for 6 o'clock so we could go home, kind of thing, and stuff. But yeah, it was crazy.
So what lessons did you learn going into Rick Dangerous 2, and what was new or changed in the sequel in terms of design and coding?
Right, well, say what we did was kind of kept the momentum of what we did before and kept all the constraints and everything like that. But the big thing that we wanted to do was to revise the trap system. So we basically came up with a big list of things that we wished we could do with the traps, which were like having multiple things that were synchronized, the ability to send a trap to do something or other, then go into another movement pattern, everything like that sort of stuff. So had a huge list of things. And Dave Pridmore took on the task of, right, I'll write the trap system at that point. So he went and created a compact data set and an editor which allowed you to give traps all of these various different movement patterns and states that then triggered other states and synchronizing and stuff like that. And it was genius, and he was like, right, I've finished it. It works here on the Spectrum and the Amstrad. How do we get it onto your other systems? We don't know. How's it work, Dave? Well, it's kind of complicated because it was really dense, optimizing as much data into this like packed sort of thing, and certain bits in certain combinations would trigger certain behaviors and everything. So actually what we did was we then spent a couple of 3 weeks where Dave sat with us each in turn, and we went through his listing, his Z80 listing, and basically line by line translated it into our chosen format. So it's like, well, you've got the X and Y registers here. These will be these registered in 68,000. I take this piece of data and then I do this. So literally it was that thing of David created this black box that only he knew existed, and then we just literally worked through and line by line translated the logic, and somehow it worked.
Was that just the easiest and quickest way to do it? It was the easiest
and quickest way to do it. It was like, if I have to explain it to you, you'll have to go through all of the, every single iteration I've done over the number of weeks that I've built it. Or if we just sit here and line by line just go through and just replicate the logic in your chosen format, it will work. I think it was like, we only had like a couple of bugs in each version, and it was like Dave going, oh yeah, that's bit so-and-so. You're like, change that to that, and it worked. So that was kind of the essence of the trap system. We wanted to have a level select in there, so you have that choice of different paths, and brought in the bad guy, the fat guy from the comic that was in the original. And then in terms of sort of style and tone, it was kind of like we could do, the adventurous sequel, but wouldn't it be more fun to parody Flash Gordon rather than going down the same old route? So that's where we went for the whole, with the gigantic ridiculous quiff and clockwork robots and mud mines and electric penguins and all that kind of stuff.
Great stuff.
So yeah, it kind of thing went in, and then I think there were a couple of suggestions that came from, I think it was Tim, was our producer, and Michael Brozip, I remember he said really well, was the idea of having little sections with the flying bikes. Could you to break them up, and then do you think you could like slide the dynamite as well? Yeah, we could do, and that actually afforded us quite a few little puzzles that we hadn't anticipated. That was kind of
so that came from Tim, the producer.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a really clever,
that's a really nice little sort of piece. So it was like, oh yeah, I'll take that and pop that in. So that kind of went in. So it was very much a case of, yeah, the team were back together. Let's do it, like that kind of thing, and did it. And then the question that always leads on from that one, were you were you going to do a Rick Dangerous 3? And the answer is simply that nobody asked us to do that, because Rick Dangerous 2 was obviously, when we did this with BT, it must have had some kind of success. Microprose then took it on, said, can we have a follow-up? Nobody came back to us and said, you were Rick Dangerous 3, and at that point we were like, well, what's the next project? So for me, I was wanting to get into, I've been doing little goofy little platform games with little cartoon characters, so how can I do stuff that's a bit more realistic and a bit more kind of cool and fancy? So that was where I was headed, the sort of the tack that took me up to doing things like Wolfchild and stuff like that. And other folks went into other different types of game and stuff. So that was kind of the reason that he's kind of left left after two of them, and done. There wasn't a trilogy.
Oh, do you know who owns the rights by Rick Dangerous now?
This is one of the ones I do get contacted about, and I've actually put a section on my website going, I don't. But I think it may be somewhere in a lock vault at the bottom of a toilet in Square Enix, because we made it at Core Design. It was then published by BT and Microprose, but I think Core Design still has it. Core Design then bought US Gold, were then bought by Eidos. Eidos was bought by Square Enix, and
good grief.
So when anybody contacts me and goes, I want to make a version of it, I am very flattered, but I have absolutely nothing to do with it. I say I made it under salary, and I can only suggest that you contact some Mr. Square Enix. It's probably there somewhere in a vault or something.
Right. Well, it seems Rick Dangerous 2 was received fantastically well. I can tell you that Amstrad Action magazine gave it their highest ever score for a game. Wow. Did you know this?
No.
At 97%.
Wow.
That was whoppingly high.
I would say it is that thing of, I'd say,
yeah. The
glance
first
at the
game got 83%, by the way, which is really good actually. They seems very pleased.
Wow.
If you didn't know that.
Oh, cool. Yeah, no, it's one of those kind of things. Say my attitude to it has been glance at it, this and the other, but you can beat yourself up enough over the game. You spend all of the time whilst you're making a game looking for what's wrong with it, and when you release it, you know everything that's still wrong with it, all the things that you never put in it, and why it will never be as good as anything anybody else has made. And then also, whilst you're making it, you're seeing in magazines and on websites and stuff like that, or on YouTube trailers of games that are slick, polished, finished and polished by magical teams that live out there in developer land, that are making these amazing projects that you will never get to make them with a kind of panache, efficiency and flair and polish that you do when you're making yours. The thing is that there are no magical mythical teams. They're doing all the same hacks, cutting away just before the engine falls out of the truck, or the particle sprites go terrible or whatever, because they're putting together a trailer. They've probably sweetened those. There was not so much now, but there used to be that sort of point back in the 90s where you had the term bull shots, where people would kind of compose screenshots of the game and go, why doesn't our game look like this? Because they've got a massive render farm in the 1990s doing that. It's never going to look like this kind of thing, but you're seeing it all polished and you're beating yourself up. So there is that sort of thing that you just go, I just have to do the best I can do and put it out there, and the next one's going to be amazing. You just do that all the time, because you could send yourself absolutely crazy by reading every review and believing every single bit of it. You could also send yourself crazy reading every amazing praising review and believing every bit of it, and it's like a case of, oh, that's really nice of you to say, and then here's my here's me putting together this game, and I get there, and 99% of the time that you're working on a game, you're seeing it broken, incomplete, and are looking for why it, what makes it suck, and what your basically job on a daily basis is to make it suck less than it did when you started. The only consolation that I've got, and I've always I cottoned onto this quite early on and kept it a thing, George Lucas will never be able to watch Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope in the way that I did when I was a kid, because he knows who's standing off the side of the camera, what he wanted to do, but he had to compromise to that shot. The fact that that's a piece of cardboard behind Harrison Ford and it's being held together with duct tape. Yeah. Whereas for me, I'm seeing it going, it's Tatooine, it's spaceships and robots and things like that kind of thing. It's a bucket being pulled on a piece of string, sort of thing. And it's like, he'll never see that for the thing that one of the things that was monumental for me. And it's like, I'm kind of in my own little way going through the same sort of thing, holding it together and stapling it, and maybe the hot glue will dry before we put it out, kind of thing. And then, but the next one's going to be amazing, and that's kind of what drives you forward.
Exactly, yeah. Had you constantly made some like little little changes in designs and how the levels and maps were like made or anything like that? Because it just seemed to play like just it's still brutally hard, but it just like it just flows just a little bit better, and
I'm trying to remember
the traps
back.
are just a little bit more signposted, just
Yeah.
very subtly. You have to look very carefully at the little details and like the walls or the trees and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it was just one of those kind of ones that we gained the experience over the next 2 years kind of thing, and just working together and stuff like that, and going, right, we're going back into this. So what are the things that we just bit by bit we all together kind of do? But it was one of those kind of ones that my memory of it is much as Rick was. It was like right in, out, and we're on to the next thing.
Yeah, I think you just like obviously you just got slightly better. And like it was
and just
all clicked.
Sweet.
It was a fantastic game. Yeah, we all loved it, I think.
Sweet.
So, thank you, Simon, for such a great interview. What an awesome, lovely bloke. His enthusiasm and positivity just shines through. And he is as nice in person as he comes across in the chat there. And we talked for 3 times as long about his other games and hobbies, even beyond recording. So expect more videos on the channel next year featuring Simon. Anyway, it's time we took a more closer and in-depth look at all the computer versions of Rick Dangerous, starting with the first game, of course. And despite them all being cross-developed at the same time, we'll begin with Simon's Atari ST version, which was slightly in the lead and ahead of the others during development. And here's the title screen with Simon's interpretation of what Rick looks like. A rather more portly and tubby looking Rick compared to what we see on the box cover art. Less Indiana Jones, more something like Russ Abbott might spoof. And we get treated to some glorious and instantly memorable music. Perfectly in keeping with the game, a bouncy, cartoony, yet heroic melody, I would say. And we'll let it play out in full here, just so you get the full experience. It's a fairly short tune, and you get no music in-game, which is the same for all versions, apart from a jingle of music on an intermission screen before a level introducing it, which we'll hear very shortly. Here we go. Rick Dangerous crash lands his plane over the Amazon while searching for the lost Gulu tribe. But by a terrible twist of fate, he lands in the middle of a bunch of wild Gulus. Can Rick escape these angry Amazonian antagonists? A nice bit of animation there. That's a nice little introduction. And there he is, escaping from the rolling boulder, a la Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark. Remember to push right on your joystick here. And there's that famous wah sound, as performed by Simon Phipps himself. And here's the first trap. Don't jump too high here to get the treasure. There's a spear trap at the top there. Digitized gunshot sounds. Here's a little tip. Poke them with a stick, stun them, drop dynamite, and they'll walk into it there. Another spear trap there. Go down the middle ladder, not the ladder closest to the like the statue that spits out spears. Not all of them spit out spears, you can see there. Yeah. 3 Gulus here. And there we go. Atari ST dealing with the digitized sound quite well there, actually. So yeah, as you can see, it has kind of a vertical scroll, but it's not a constant one. It scrolls in sections at a time. It doesn't scroll and move with Rick. Otherwise, essentially, it's a single screen adventure, and when you move horizontally off a screen, it just updates to the next screen. Yeah. Graphically, on this level, it's gone for a subtle blend of greys, browns and oranges to give that Aztec stone temple feel. It's not going for bright, bold colours. Just wait until you see the Amstrad and Specky versions. This is tastefully done. But then you contrast it with the sprites, which are hilariously cartoony, and that's all Simon. It's got great animation, again, thanks to Simon. And everything moves and smoothly and responsively. Controls work perfectly once you get used to holding down the fire button, and you push up to use the stick, right or left to shoot your gun, and down to drop a stick of dynamite. It's all very intuitive, and it's just so easy to jump and hop around. So many platformer games just get platforming wrong. And Rick is light and bouncy, and you can actually jump quite high. It's just really good fun to play, and any basic mistakes you make are generally your fault, apart from avoiding the traps. And you kind of get like a sixth sense of where the traps are going to be. I mean, like, you could see that thing on the wall there is going to be a spear trap, and that it might launch a spear at you. So you just got to sort of keep your eyes open and keep your wits about you. But we're talking about specifically about the ST version here, and we haven't looked at any of the other versions. I mean, you've seen clips of it throughout the video already, and you might have an idea what the other versions look like. But I suppose this is the lead version. Is it the best version? Well, what will the Amiga version look and sound like? Well, it's probably going to be pretty identical, but will the sound effects and music be any better? Well, we haven't really got any music in game. We're going to have music on the title screen. It's going to sound very Amiga-y. Would it sound any better or not? Which will you prefer? I'm going to just say right now, I think I slightly prefer the sound of the ST's music. Just me personally. I don't know. It just sounds a bit more, I don't know. We'll wait and see. Well, you see what you think. Let's switch over to the Amiga version now. So what do we think to how the famous theme tune sounds on the good old synthy Paula's sound chip on the Amiga? Pretty good, actually. I mean, I think I slightly prefer how it sounds on the ST. It just sounds a bit more in your face and dramatic. I don't know. Seems a bit more laid back here, but I do like it. Talking of how it sounds, did you know that the music here is basically the same notes as the famous Indiana Jones theme? Or rather specifically the Raiders March by John Williams, just cleverly transposed in different ways? I never noticed myself, actually, until Simon mentioned it, chatting after the interview. But yeah, it's basically the Raiders theme notes, just rearranged differently. But obviously a bit more jolly and bouncy. That's very clever. Also, David Pridmore, the coder of the Z80 versions, the Amstrad and Spectrum, did the music on all the versions of Rick Dangerous. So he's not only handled the music on like the Commodore 64, Atari ST, and Amiga. He's done it on all of them. So that's impressive stuff, doing the music across all those different computers and sound chips. That's really impressive. And then coded the Z80 versions. So yeah, we got some slightly different sounding sound effects. I think the sound effect quality is just that slightly bit better. The Amiga can just handle the those digitized sound effects just that little bit better. So we were already just slightly better there on the Amiga than the ST, but otherwise the game itself, from the graphics, animation and gameplay, I think it's just absolutely identical. Yeah, you can hear the the stick noise there and the wah sounds. The sample rate of the digitized sounds is just much better. So in game, I think the Amiga version has the edge over the ST. Yeah. So I know Simon loves his Atari ST. So sorry, Simon. I think the Amiga has the edge just purely on the game, but I think I prefer the sound of the ST's music on the title screen. Which is the winner of the 16-bit versions? Oh dear, sorry, I got myself killed there. Well, I'll have to give it probably to the Amiga because it's all about in-game, really. And it's all it comes down to is just the digitized sound effects. That's it. That's all that's in it. Otherwise, they're identical, even down to, I think, to the vertical scroll. I really can't see any difference in like the probably the frame rate of the scroll or anything like that. It's still it's not a constant scroll on the vertical there. It scrolls in sections at a time, and I think when we move off horizontally onto the next screen, it just instantly changes. So basically, it's an ST port as well. Sorry, Amiga owners. Oh dear, I'm not doing very well on this run here. But yeah, I don't think there's really anything else to really add here for the Amiga version. But yeah, it's great. Everything I said on the ST version applies here, just differences in how it sounds. So let's move on. I think, the last of the, I suppose, 16-bit. Is PC DOS considered 16-bit? Well, I think we'll look at that version next. So we're going to boot up the EGA graphics adapter version of Rick Dangerous on the PC DOS. There's no music on the title screen here at all, sadly, but probably for the best because the PC beeper is not going to sound great. You might have seen earlier in the video, I have had some montage footage playing at various points, which had the CGA graphics adapter version of Rick Dangerous on the PC, which looks rather garish in sort of these bright orangey lime green colours, which looks pretty nasty, to be honest. The version I was playing just booted straight into the CGA version. That was after I spent ages recording all that montage footage, so I'm not going to go back and redo that. But I found a different version which I could select which graphics adapter I wanted, so I can now play the EGA version, which looks a lot nicer. So I re-recorded the footage, and here it is. And it has a nice sort of like grey stonework for the stone temple, and has nice sort of muted sort of brown and red colours for the background and the Rick sprite, and a bit of yellow on the faces and stuff like that. And the graphics look kind of okay, really. Not as good as the ST and Amiga. I don't think it's ever going to look as good as those versions. But as you can see, it runs really fast. It's like a turbocharged Rick Dangerous, but I don't know if this is like basically my DOSBox settings are wrong and it's just like running way too fast. But then at the time, back in the day, you could have different configurations inside your PC. You could have faster CPUs, and different chips, faster, a bit more RAM and faster RAM and all that kind of stuff. So you could experiment around at the time and have different hardware inside your PC. So PC games could run faster on certain PCs and other PCs at the time. So you could have had a slower Rick Dangerous or a faster Rick Dangerous potentially at the time. So you could have perhaps could have been variable speeds for Rick Dangerous depending on your PC configuration, I would guess. I don't know. I was not a PC user back in the day when this came out. I didn't get a PC until Windows 95 days. So Anyway, otherwise it controls perfectly fine. I'm having to use keyboard here, so I'm going to be making a lot of mistakes on the gameplay here. It's O and K to go up and down, Z and X to go left and right, and space bar. So forgive me for any bad gameplay here. But other than that, it's another good version of Rick Dangerous. It's probably maybe the version that doesn't look as nice as the others, unless you want to argue the ZX Spectrum one is the weakest looking of the bunch. But for what the Spectrum version does on its limited graphical capabilities, it's fantastic. And I think even with the PC, with its limited graphical capabilities as well, what it pulls off here is really good too. Just don't play the CGA version. So there you go. Rick Dangerous on the PC, DOS. Another very respectable version of Rick Dangerous, but I would stick with the ST and Amiga. All right. So we move on to the 8-bit versions, and we're going to begin with the Commodore 64 conversion, which was handled by Stuart Gregg, who before this, I think he'd done Gauntlet 1 and 2 and Mask for Gremlin Graphics, before handling this for Core Design. And yeah, David Pridmore getting a good tune at the SID for the music here on the title screen. Yeah, sounds nice actually. A little bit farty, but but synthy. Yeah, quite a good version of the Rick Dangerous theme here. Yeah, I quite like it. Not bad at all, actually. Let's see what the next jingle sounds like. Ooh. Oh, that sounds really good, actually. That sounds better than the titles theme tune. Ooh. Oh, the SID sounded really good there. Let's see what the sound effects sound like here as well. What's the wah? The wah sound? A little bit disappointing. Oh, good gun sound noise there. No noise picking up the golden idol treasure. The gun sounds pretty good. What does the dynamite sound like? Let's have a listen. Oh, good explosion noise there, though. Yeah. So, the Rick sprite looks really good. The Commodore 64 can do these high res sprites, but you only have a very limited amount of colours for them. I think Simon said we can only do them in 3 colours. You'll notice that the Gulu sprites though look a lot less. Well, they're low res. I don't know much about sort of the graphics capabilities and limitations on the Commodore 64, so more knowledgeable people can comment on that in the comments on the YouTube video. But the Rick sprite looks really good, and I suspect that it's going to be the best Rick sprite out of all the 8-bit versions. Nice animation on the dynamite there. And really nice greys on the stonework for the Stone Aztec Temple. I suspect as well it's probably going to be the nicest looking brick and stonework. Commodore 64 is known for its greys and browns and stuff like that. But yeah, got a sort of a blue background, yellow on the ladders. It's subtly done. And actually, I think it looks actually quite nice. Oh, I like how the sprite comes out the screen at you when Rick loses a life. Look at that. That's a really nice touch, actually. That's something that I've not seen on any other version. Oh, that's a nice noise there when the gate comes down as well. So the Commodore 64 version has like some extra little touches that I've not seen or heard on the other versions. Although that wah sounds, that wah noise sounds more like some kind of electrical disturbance. But all right, it's still a good noise or whatever. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like controls and responsiveness, this is as good as the Atari ST, Amiga, and all that kind of stuff. And not to give spoilers away, it's as good as the other 8-bit versions in terms of its responsiveness. But yeah, this is. I'm sorry for losing a few lives here and repeating some sections, but this is a good version of Rick Dangerous. We'll decide after looking at the Spectrum and Amstrad versions which one is the best. In a few minutes, I guess. But yeah, another good version of Rick Dangerous here. So we're going to do the Amstrad CPC version next, and this is the title screen, and there's no music, no high score table, just press fire to start, Rick Dangerous, and what is the start of the level there. So we might as well just start things up. That's very disappointing. There's not even a loading screen. Actually, the other 8-bit versions has a loading screen, which I didn't show for the Commodore 64 version, and I won't bother for the Spectrum one, which I want to get into the game. But that's even missing on the Amstrad one, and that is very disappointing. What's with the lack of presentation on the Amstrad version, guys? Oh, there we go. Oh, that looks nice, though. And there's the rolling boulder. What's the wah sound like? Not bad. A bit more substantial than the Commodore 64's wah. It's a bit more in your face. Yeah, I like the sprite falling off the screen there. Yeah, gun sounds pretty good. What's the dynamite like? Good explosion noise, but no animation on the dynamite. That's a bit disappointing. And the vertical scroll there, it looks a little bit lagged, actually. Slightly low frame rate on the vertical scroll there. Otherwise, it sort of refreshes to the next screen on the horizontal. When you move horizontally onto the next screen, it flips over fairly quickly. Maybe slightly lagged there as well. That's slightly disappointing. Otherwise, there's a few before I say otherwise, there's a few disappointments on the Amstrad version. But the big positives for me are the graphics. I think this looks absolutely glorious. I think the Amstrad's Mode 0 16 colours and its colour palette is used fantastically here. I still think probably the Commodore 64 has the best Rick sprite, but I think it's very close because it's high res on the Commodore 64. Very low res, I suppose, on the Amstrad, but it's really colourful and it just kind of looks gloriously chunky and colourful. Now, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Some people are going to hate this and some people are really going to love it. Now, you're going to be very split on that. I think generally, for the background colours and backgrounds, I think the Amstrad version kind of wins. Certainly the Gulu sprites definitely look better than the Commodore 64's. The Rick sprite, maybe the Commodore 64 wins on that. Maybe not by much though. I kind of just like look. I think the Rick sprite is meant to be cartoony, and it's definitely cartoony here. Oh look, on the Amstrad version, you can actually hop across there and hit that switch before you're meant to. And the Amstrad one's a kind of more interesting version because it's lacking. Oh, we've actually already beat the level here. I'm still talking. We can have a look at the Egyptian level if we want here. The Amstrad version is lacking like the presentation of the other versions, even the Spectrum one. But it's got those colours, and it's chunky and it's blocky. But let's have a look. Just have a quick look at this Egyptian level. I mean, this looks absolute. To my eyes, I am biased, but this looks absolutely glorious. Just look at those colours being used and how it's all blended together. This looks sensational to me, and it's an awkward one to say now which is the better one out of the 8-bits, because I don't think the Spectrum and C64 can touch it here in terms of graphics. This looks cartoony and fantastic. It looks like a cartoon strip now. But as I said, it's cool comes down to personal preference, and I am biased because I grew up with the Amstrad. So I've got to take myself out of the equation here, and you say in the comments which you think looks best of the 8-bits, and which is If in terms of which is the better version overall, well, you know, the Amstrad is missing the music on the title screen, but all the versions don't have any music in game. The Amstrad has decent sound effects here. I'd say almost as good as the Commodore 64's, if not almost on a par. Are they on a par? The wah sound, I think, probably is a bit better. It's pretty disappointing actually on the C64. Anyway, I'm rambling now. It's all, you know, all a bit of fun, not to be taken too seriously. This controls fantastically, just as good as the Commodore 64 version, as does the Spectrum one. It all moves smoothly, fluidly. Controls are responsive. The gameplay is as good as the Commodore 64. It's as good as the Atari ST and the Amiga, which is, and I'd say the same about the Commodore 64. And gameplay is king, and I'd say they're all on a par as each other in terms of gameplay, and that's what matters at the end of the day. So, all right, let's move on. And here we are with the ZX Spectrum version of Rick Dangerous, the last version we'll be looking at, and it's got title screen music, which I have no idea why it couldn't have been put on the Amstrad, because they share the same AY chip. If you have a 128K Speccy, at least one of the later versions of the ZX Spectrum released by Amstrad. So yes, yeah, not bad rendition of the music. And we're going to skip forward here to hear the intermission music before the first level. Oh, that sounds really good, actually. Better than the title screen music, actually. Very nice. Very nice. Oh, and off we go. Oh, and this is actually really colourful for the Speccy. They've not gone monochrome. And yeah, sound effects sounding pretty similar to the Amstrad. And oh, actually, so even more colours here. So yeah, I think given the machine's limitations, I think they've done a great job here with the graphics. You can see here on the first level, it's predominantly 4 colours of like green, black, light blue, and white. Then with splashes of purple and yellow. Some objects like ladders and spikes and things. Yeah. Oops. Sorry. Lost a life there. Never mind. Compared to the Amstrad version, it's very favourable because I think it's moving just a touch faster. And yeah, it's got a bit more presentation with the loading screen, although a title screen. Although, to be honest, the title screen wasn't much to write home about, really. It was just a black screen with a bit of text and a little bit of flashing colours around the logo or whatever. Although it's got some animation on the dynamite, even if it's only like 2 frames of like a little bit of sparkle. But it's just that those little touches. Those little touches kind of count sometimes. You know. Yeah. Anything else I've noticed that's different? Not really. I think like the vertical scroll is just a touch smoother. Yeah, it is actually than the Amstrad version. But otherwise, when I was playing it earlier, when I was recording this footage, I mean the controls are just as responsive as the Amstrad version, as the Commodore version, as the Atari ST and Amiga. They all feel exactly the same as each other. So in terms of like the coding and gameplay and feel, they're all identical, really. Honestly, you can't put one above the other in terms of the gameplay. Rick bounces around the screen as fluidly and as bouncy as across all the versions. So yeah, they're all great, really, in terms of gameplay. And I keep repeating myself there, but gameplay is king. Then it just comes down to like nitpicking. We're just nitpicking like little details here and there, and I think, you know, maybe the Spectrum version graphically is possibly the weakest, but on the other hand, like, you got to admire it for what it's pulled off with its limitations. And I think they've done a fantastic job with like within like the 8 colours limitations, and I think the sound effects are great as well. So yeah, great job here in the ZX Spectrum version, and Specky fans are going to be really happy and really proud of this version, and I love it. I think I love all of them. I'm just kind of a bit miffed about the Amstrad version a bit, but I still love it very much too. I think the graphics are fantastic on that too. So which do you think is the best version of Rick Dangerous? I mean, let's put them all side by side and bring up the montage again. It's really hard to pick a winner, and we don't have to. Let's just say they're all great in their own little ways. Each of them have their own little faults and niggles, or in terms of their presentation or graphics or sounds, of how they look, and how, you know, as well. So yeah, let me know which one is your favourite in the comments below, and it's time to move on to the sequel, Rick Dangerous 2. And I think we'll go through the versions in the same order, so we'll start with the Atari ST version. And here we go. Nice little introduction to the tune here. That famous Rick Dangerous 2 song. Oh, I love it. Really jolly and heroic upbeat song, this one. And not sure if this one is trying to sort of like emulate a famous tune, like the Rick Dangerous 1 song was like basically kind of like taking notes from the Raiders of the Lost Ark theme. Certainly this bit of the song is very reminiscent of like a John Williams score. Maybe like Superman or something like that. Certainly though, obviously this is inspired by like the Flash Gordon comics and serials of like the 1950s and 60s and stuff like that, but it really fits the game like super well. And yeah, well, let's get into it. Let's start it up, and we get to choose which level we want to start on. And now we get like a comic book style intro sequence. Much longer than the first game. And it's properly animated. Look at that. He loses his hat. And now he's got his quiffed blonde hair. Get past the lasers of the UFO, the giant spaceship actually. I'll just let the jingle play out in full, because if you move off the screen, you don't hear the full jingle. And got some twinkling stars in the background there. And there's the sliding bombing action there already. Now they're now called detonators. Sorry. And now Rick has got like kind of like a laser pistol or ray gun or whatever, keeping in with like the sort of like the 1950s retro sci-fi theme. And who needs music in game where we've got all these like laser blasts happening all the time? So lots of sound effects happening, and it's sounding really good on the ST. So he hasn't got his stick anymore. He's now just got like a really powerful fist. And trying to stun a robot there. Maybe get the other second robot to come over and see if we can take out both robots with the detonator. It's maybe taking a little bit too long. Come on, second robot, over you come. There he comes. No? Oh, I think maybe I should have edited this bit out. But, yeah, again, the ST can really do those metallic... Oh, I'm giving up. The second robot there has been a bit random. Oh, we've got an arrow pointing towards the button, giving you some idea where to go. And now the screen scrolls vertically with Rick, rather than in sections. Now the arrow pointed towards the button to use, but actually it was a troll, as we say now these days. He didn't say that back in the 90s. If you press the button where the arrow is pointing to, you would have got a laser blast in the face. And now it's showing you this is what you can do with the sliding bombs. You can now get to a secret area. Yes, there you go. New trick that Rick can do. So yeah, the ST version, very metallic looking within the spaceship, using those shades of grey really, really well. Again, you know, Simon Phipps has done a great job coding here. It moves very, very smoothly and nicely. There's no lag. Controls very nice and responsive. Some animation there on those jars in the background of like green goo. Nice explosions there from the laser blasts coming across. As you can see there, it's all pretty self-explanatory, like the traps, which are now these laser blasts, and buttons to press on the walls. You know, people complained about, oh, it's too difficult, it's all a memory test and stuff. But like, look at the buttons, try and figure it out. So far, if you look very carefully and plan ahead, it's fairly self-explanatory. Look, there's a laser thing on the wall there that might get activated. So duck down, and there's a button there to turn off that laser. Just be cautious and take your time. That's the thing about Rick Dangerous. There's no time limit in the game. So take your time. Think, look ahead. Oh, now Rick comes out at the screen at you. That may be something Simon noticed on the Commodore 64 version from the previous game. They went, oh, that was a nice feature on the C64 version. I think I'll use that. Rick coming out the screen at you when he loses a life. So that's now in the sequel. So yeah, another great version. Of Rick Dangerous. Rick Dangerous 2 looking really, really good here. Again, no problems, no issues. Sound effects sounding really good here. Wah sound still in the game. And yeah, no complaints here. What's the Amiga version going to sound like? And I guess it's going to play exactly the same as the ST one. But what will the Paula chip sound like compared to the ST? Let's find out next. Ooh. Ooh, I'm not sure I'm liking the sound of that, personally, to be honest. It's a bit poppy and chintzy. I'm not finding the right words there. Now, normally I love Amiga music. Not sure I'm liking that as much. It's still good. Don't get me wrong. I still think that's good music. Just I don't think I like the kind of choice of sounds there, choice of instruments for the music. Otherwise, it's still all right. Still sounds heroic enough for Rick. I think I prefer the sound of the ST's title screen music. Again, like Rick Dangerous 1. Just personal choice, I think. Oh, but this sounds good. This sounds better. Again, like Rick Dangerous 1, I prefer like the intermission or like pre-level 1 music to the title screen music on the Amiga. The Amiga does really good like kind of creepy sounding music anyway, generally. Yeah, this sounds really good. I like this. And again, this sounds better on the Amiga than it does on the ST. So the Amiga wins on like the pre-level 1 music, but the ST wins on the title screen music. For me, anyway, just personally. You may think different in the comments because it's all personal and all subjective. There you go. Do the sound effects sound better on the Amiga? Actually, they sound pretty similar this time round. Hard to tell much difference. I think maybe the slightly better. Oh, the thump noise sounds a bit better actually on the Amiga. The rest of them, oh, actually that sounds a bit nicer as well. When the arrow popped up there. Yeah. So yeah, I think possibly the Amiga sound effects sound a bit better. We did on Rick Dangerous 1. It had more sampled sound effects. Like there was a gunshot noise, which I think was a digitized sound effect that was sampled. The sample quality was better on the Amiga. I don't know if there's any like sort of sampled sound effects apart from Rick's "Wah!" I would guess if that happens on here, probably when Rick dies, actually, it would sound better on the Amiga. So I'd say probably the Amiga wins over the ST for the sound effects. ST wins for the title screen music. But Amiga wins for the music in between levels. So we're just nitpicking here. Otherwise, this plays identically to the ST. Gameplay-wise, again, identical. You're not going to find any of the differences, I don't think. So, they're even. Let's just call it a draw on the two 16-bit version rivals. And we'll leave it there. Well done on the ST and Amiga. Well done, Simon Phipps. And we'll move on to the PC-DOS version. So we're doing the EGA graphics mode version. Oh, bit of a wobbly start to the music. But it's fine from now on. Using the good old PC beeper. If you remember, Rick Dangerous 1 didn't have any title screen music, but we have some music here for once. And we'll let it play out in all its one-note glory. What was that on the titles? High score table there, sorry. Where was that? Saddam H? What, Saddam Hussein? A bit weird, but there we go. But nice picture there. Yeah, we're not doing the CGA mode this time. Again, that was put on my montage video, so sorry. You can see the CGA version in that little montage video we had playing during for the interview and various parts of the video earlier, but EGA mode / VGA for this comparison. Anyway, let's move on and kick things off. Right, it should have... Yeah, okay, level select. Let's see if it's got the intro. It does have the intro. Oh, it doesn't have the full tune, though. But it looks like it might have the full animated sequence. Excellent. Okay, cool. So that does carry over from the 16-bit versions of the Amiga and Atari ST. Cool. So that's yeah, good sign so far. And yeah, here we are in Hyde Park. No jingle of music though. We've got the twinkling stars. And actually pretty decent sound effects from the PC speaker, all things considered. And it looks like it's moving and running pretty much the same speed, actually, as the Amiga and ST. When we were looking at Rick Dangerous 1, it looked like it was running way too fast, but looks like with my DOS box, we've got it running at a sensible speed, pretty much in sync with the same speed as the Amiga and ST. And graphics-wise, looks identical to the ST and Amiga. Honestly, can't really spot any differences. Looks identical. Plays as smoothly and of course as responsively as the ST and Amiga, and it's pretty much identical, really. So they've done a very good job porting it to the PC DOS here. Kind of not sure what else to say, really, or to add. It's yeah. So yeah, another great version of Rick Dangerous 2, really. Just that obviously maybe if you don't have a sound card, the sound effects and music are going to be a lot weaker than the ST and Amiga. So I wonder what it sounded like with a proper sound card in and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, PC owners got a decent port here, definitely. So I think I'll leave it here, and we'll probably move on at this point then to the 8-bit versions. So we're going to start with the Commodore 64 version, and oh wow, it's got like a nice little animated sequence on the title screen with Rick on his anti-gravity bike and a lovely high score table. Yeah, that's really nicely presented. Very nice presentation indeed. That's really sweet. And a really good rendition of the music as well. Yeah, sounds really nice on the old SID chip, definitely. Yeah, it gets a big thumbs up from me, this, actually. Really good presentation, definitely. So, yeah, very good start for the Commodore 64 version here. Liking this a lot. Egan Spenglerberg at the top of the high score there. Kenya F. Chicken for KFC. All right, let's move on then. And we'll start, of course, the Hyde Park there. Oh, a little bit of disk loading. And let's see if it has the animated sequence for the start of the first level. Yeah, the Commodore 64 is not known for its fast disk loading. I could have edited this out, but, well, anyway. Here we go. Ah! It's got the music, and I think it's got the intro sequence for the first level. It does! And it's animated. Very nice. Oh, I'm impressed. I'm impressed. Excellent. Wow, okay. Oh, no jingle though when you move between screens, like the ding ding ding, which is present on the other versions. Little timer noise there on the detonator. That's cool. But it's what do we think? It's the colours though. It's kind of a weird sort of like garish blue and yellow. Not sure I like that. That's the first disappointing thing, though, I think, on this. Oh, it does have the ding, ding, ding. It was just missing on the first and second screen, but it does appear there. That little jingle. The rig sprite, high definition, like in the first game. The other sprites, not so. But yeah, I like the rig sprite, definitely. Again, he's only in like 3 colours, but the background kind of like spaceship and that sort of. Oh, I like the big Rick sprite as he dies coming out the screen at you, like in the first game. That's really, really cool. I do like that. So the background art there on the main sort of part of the ship there, that sort of striped yellow and grey. I don't like that at all. And you got sort of that blue background contrasting with it. I think it looks pretty ugly. And then you got sort of the red of the iron girders and stuff. Got a bit of animation in the background there with the flashing red lights there. Some green girders there as well. I don't know if these colours really work and like mesh and gel together very well. Definitely so far this is the ugliest looking version in terms of like the use of colours and stuff. I mean, obviously, I already know what kind of like the last 2 versions look like. The Amstrad and Spectrum. You're gonna see them shortly. I'm gonna say I think this is graphically the least nicest looking version, but it does move and play very nicely, and you can see that it scrolls up and down with Rick. That's very nice. Which the other 2 8-bit versions don't do. It moves with Rick vertically. But what it do, but the strange thing is, when you move off the screen horizontally, the screen goes black for about a second or near a second, and then redraws itself, which is quite jarring. We'll maybe see that in a second or two. Thankfully, for most of this level, you're moving sort of vertically, but on later levels, when you are doing a lot of like moving left to right horizontally between screens, that can be quite jarring. So we're going to see this here. So he's going to move off the screen to the left here. Watch it go black and then come on. Yeah, there. Yeah. That's a bit of a shame, that actually. So there's gonna be a few sections later on where you're gonna move off the screen left to right and right to left, and the screen goes black for nearly a second, then it sort of redraws itself. So that's a bit of a shame. That he didn't do that so much on Rick Dangerous 1, but on this version, I think it's a different coder for Rick Dangerous 2 than it was on Rick Dangerous 1 for the C64. Yeah, I wonder why it takes so long to redraw horizontally, moving between screens. So, yeah, so on one hand, it's much better than Rick Dangerous 1. On the other hand, there's some negatives. So, yeah, I think this is a least nice looking version of Rick Dangerous 2, but there's some excellent stuff here. Like some lovely presentation on the title screen. You got the animated sequence before the level, but yeah. So there you go. Let's move on to the next version then. So next up is the Amstrad CPC version, and we actually get a proper title screen, a little bit of presentation with some nice dropping and falling down text. That's really nice and coolly done, actually. I like that. And some really nice sounding music Finally, we actually get some music on the title screen. We didn't get that on Rick Dangerous 1. And it's really nicely done, actually. Sounds really good, the music. Not sure if I prefer the SID chip version on the C64 or the AY chip version on the Amstrad. And presumably the ZX Spectrum version is going to sound exactly the same. This one sounds a bit more in your face than the SID chip version, which is a bit more sort of subtle and I don't know. We're going to start it off, but unfortunately we don't get the animated intro sequence before the level. You just jump straight into the level, sadly. So, Now, I'm not moving off the screen here, because if you do, the music cuts out. So I'm just staying here, just so we can hear the tune. At least we do get the intro tune to the level. Just no story about the first level. No text screen, at least. I think this is because... oh, by the way, before we talk about that... You get actually foreground and background objects. Look, Rick is behind the grass there. So, that's interesting. I think part of the reason we don't get any of the animated intro sequences is Rick Dangerous 2 loads in all one load. Oh, look at the, do you see the vertical scroll there? Much smoother than in Rick Dangerous 1. And look how the screen scrolls horizontally as well. Very, very smoothly. Again, much smoother than in Rick Dangerous 1. And I think it's using the Amstrad's hardware scroll to do that. Oh, look, we got both robots together. And you can blow them up together if you're very clever like that. So in Rick Dangerous 1, we noticed that the scroll, certainly vertically, was a bit lagged. But David Pridmore has solved that problem. I think he's using like the CRT chips, which is the Amstrad's video chip, R1 and R3 registers to do like a hardware scroll there for those nerds out there that like that kind of information. And you can see, look how smooth it moves, actually. Very, very smooth. So that's really good. That's definite improvement over the first game. And it's really smooth. It doesn't scroll with Rick like it does in the C64, but this is a definite marked improvement over the first game and is more than acceptable, I think. And it does actually sort of scroll with Rick as he moves horizontally off the screen. Look, watch. That's very nice. He doesn't just go blank and then redraw the screen as when you move off as well. So that's better than the C64 version. And I think the colours here look really, really good. They blend in very, very nicely. Not garish like the C64 one. It is very, very bright, bold and blocky. Now, again, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And it all comes down to personal preference and choice. I think this looks absolutely glorious and beautiful. But I have grown up with the Amstrad CPC, so I am definitely biased. You let me know in the comments which you prefer the look of. There's going to be some ZX Spectrum owners out there that will think theirs looks the best, especially given the limitations of the machine. We will be looking at that version next. But I think this looks pretty sensational for an 8-bit machine. And yeah, I think this sounds great as well. Great sound effects. I think a markup on the Rick Dangerous 1 sound effects, especially now we've got sort of sci-fi shooty sound effects. Got lasers and all that kind of stuff apparently in stereo, though I can't really sort of tell very well on my headphones. Maybe it's an emulator thing, but yeah, great stuff. I think this is a fantastic version of Rick Dangerous 2. I don't think you could ask for much better on an 8-bit system. And I would probably argue this is probably the best version on the 8-bits, but I can sense the pitchforks are coming out in the comments already. So, but I'm biased. I grew up with the Amstrad, so you let me know in the comments which you think is the best. But we've not looked at the ZX Spectrum version yet, so maybe I might change my mind. But there we go. This is Rick Dangerous 2 on the Amstrad. But the Commodore 64 did have that extra presentation and that lovely title screen and the animation between the levels. There we go. All right, let's move on to the good old Specky. So, last but certainly not least, the ZX Spectrum version of Rick Dangerous 2. And just like the Amstrad version, we've got the dropping down text on the title screen. Very nice. And the same music, but seems to be at like a higher pitch. Oh, but we've got an animated anti-gravity bike Rick. As we're selecting options, that's different and added. That wasn't there on the Amstrad. That's cool. So, but some additional options there for choosing keys and joystick. Obviously, the Specky had like different types of joysticks, Kempston and Cursor and Sinclair, because the Spectrum was weird like that. But yeah, cool. But similar presentation to the Amstrad by the looks of it, and I bet it's missing the... yes, it's missing the animated cutscene, just like the Amstrad. Oh, a bit of slowdown there. Oh, quite a bit of slowdown. And yeah, if you move off the screen, the music stops, sadly. So, but yeah... Same music though as the Amstrad, but the Amstrad didn't have the slowdown there on the music, weirdly. Okay, but it is present on the Specky. Don't know why that happened. Foreground and background objects. The grass there obscuring Rick. It's a nice touch. And again, it's not monochrome like Rick Dangerous could have been. The first one. It's using. Like nearly all 8 colours available. And it's very colourful indeed. I'm going for pinks, yellows, greens, blues, whites and blacks. See if we can get both robots together and drop a bomb. Take out both of them. Nice! So yeah, this looks very nice indeed. We've got sort of a black outline around the sprites there to make them stand out a bit better. Rick going behind some foreground objects there. It doesn't, I don't think it scrolls as smoothly vertically as the Amstrad version. Yeah, it's just very slightly lagged compared to the Amstrad, but we're like it's a minor nitpick. Let's see how it moves horizontally when we go off this screen here in a second. But otherwise, this is an excellent version again of Rick Dangerous 2. It's how it moves horizontally. Ah, it doesn't scroll. It does like a refresh, which is very, very slightly lagged. You can see it sort of refreshing and redrawing the screen. So yeah, there you go. You can see it's partly drawing the screen bit by bit there. If you look very closely. So the Amstrad version does it better and best out of the 8-bit versions. And of course the Amstrad has more colours on the screen, but the Rick sprite is certainly more higher definition. I think probably the C64 may have the best Rick sprite out of all 3 versions. But I think background graphics wise, I think the Specky version probably looks better than the C64. Amstrad version may be best out of all 3. And the Specky and the Amstrad probably on a par of each other with the sound effects as well. I don't know. So, where do we rank the 8-bit versions overall? Both the Amstrad and Spectrum lacking the intro sequence and stuff, so it's hard to say, really. I don't know. I'm going for the Amstrad version as the winner of the 8-bit versions, but I'm biased. So as I said earlier, you let me know what you think in the comments below. It's all a bit of fun. And maybe the Amiga is the winner of the 16-bit versions. But there you go. Well, that's all the versions compared. So that leaves us to have a look at the new improved version of Rick Dangerous 1 for the Amstrad Plus version, which is Rick Dangerous 128 Plus, as it's known. And to say there was a homebrew port of Rick Dangerous 2 for the Sega Mega Drive, or Genesis if you're in America. And also there was homebrew ports of Rick Dangerous 1 for the Acorn Archimedes and for the MSX2. I don't have footage for those, but we'll have a quick look now at Rick Dangerous 128 Plus for the Amstrad. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is Rick Dangerous 128 Plus, a remake of the first Rick Dangerous game for the Amstrad 6128 Plus computer, a computer that came out in 1990, with an extended palette of colours, 4,096 colours. And the ability to do like hardware scrolling and hardware sprites, which is good. The sprites here will be utilised. Got a new loading screen here. As you can see, lots of colours being used there. And it's going overscan into the top and bottom borders. Nice fade out there. And cool. Get a new title screen with the actual music this time, and a nice scroller. Main code and additional graphics by Fano, who worked on the R-Type remake and port. That was another homebrew thing. Intro code and graphics by BDC Iron, and in-game graphics by MacDef. And it's a hint that you can play around and change the scroller message by pressing the function keys. And I think the music here may be a direct port of the Atari ST music, although it plays at a different sort of frequency. But anyway, so yeah, I'm having to play around with the scroller message here. There you go. And if you press F2 for the options, you can have a look here at the various different things in just a second. But this game will include, if you press F3, the extended edition, right? The extended edition includes the missing extra levels, well, the extended level that the Amiga and Atari ST version had. Oh, we now get the intro sequence, the animated intro, and the text there that was missing on the Amstrad and I think the Spectrum version, I think. That's now in the game. Oh wow, now look at it! These beautiful colours. There we go. And does he have the wah sound? It has the digitized wah sound. Fantastic. Excellent. And we now get a new heads-up display at the top. If you notice there for the bullet and dynamite count and lives and score. And oh yeah, let's see if we got the animation on the dynamite. Let's test it out. Excellent. We now got animated dynamite as well, which was missing on the Amstrad original. So yeah, excellent. Although the scrolling's still a bit laggy, that's not been changed. We just got a graphical overhaul of the sprites and the background graphics. We've got a new heads-up display. We've got the digitized wah sound effect, and we've got the new extended level, which we'll skip forward to now. So we'll skip forward to the end of the level. Normally this will be the end of the first level, but now we've got the whole new extended first level, which would happen on the Amiga and Atari ST. So you didn't get this on the ZX Spectrum or the Commodore 64 version, but now you can play it on your Amstrad. Well, at least the Amstrad 6128 Plus or the 464 Plus if you have extra memory installed, if you're very good at modding it. Or if you're very good at modding the GX4000 console. But there you go. This is our Rick Dangerous 128 Plus homebrew port. There you go. And I think it's now time to move on to the Amstrad CPC long playing reviews of Rick Dangerous 1 and 2. Alright, so this is a long playing review for Rick Dangerous 1 on the Amstrad CPC, released by Firebird in 1989. And we don't get any loading screen at all whatsoever, and this is the title screen. That's all you get. No options to redefine keys, just Rick Dangerous, press fire to start, and it's like the first screen of the game, just static there. That's it. That's your lot. Nothing. What's going on here? Absolutely minimal presentation. Not a very impressive start. Yeah. Well, let's just get going. South America. Rick Dangerous crash lands his plane over the Amazon while searching for the lost Gulu tribe. But by a terrible twist of fate, he lands in the middle of a bunch of wild Gulus. Can Rick escape these angry Amazonian antagonists? Well, let's find out, shall we? All very Indiana Jonesy. And the Raiders of the Lost Ark as he escapes a rolling boulder. Yeah, very Raiders. Let's listen out for that wah sound. Yeah, not bad at all. More like moo. But there we go. And our first checkpoint there. I love the animation on the Gulu there. I avoided the first trap there. There's a spear trap above our heads. Just jump on the first ledge there, not the second one, to get the lost idol treasure. No animation on the dynamite there, which is a bit of a shame. All the other versions have animation on the dynamite, which is a bit of a shame. Some spears to avoid dropping onto. And there we go. So this is set in the year 1945, around about the time of World War II. But Rick is off on his adventures in South America, in the Amazon. But apparently, I think he works for the British government or something like that, because he's later on in the game. He gets communiques from British intelligence, and we're off into Germany rescuing prisoners of war. So he does sort of get involved with the British war effort. Anyway, right. First thing to do, dynamite at last, is blown away blocks. So yeah. Our first interactions with the environment. And second interaction there. Apparently those rocks are lethal for some reason. If you touch those like boulders, it does actually kill Rick. So why those boulders are actually lethal to him, I don't actually know. Maybe they're radioactive or something? That always confused me. Anyway, some hidden things in the background there you can climb up on. They're very, very hard to spot in the background, but you can climb up on them. hidden spear in the background there, spear trap. That didn't actually get activated, but when you climb off that ladder there will be a spear normally being shot across after you. Okay, can you? All right. Normally you can. Normally I poke that guy with my stick just to stun him, but I dropped the dynamite there and he walked into it. Watch out! There can be a spear trap launched across at you sometimes where I'm stood there. The spear didn't actually get launched from the left. It's a bit random, but there's no like sort of statue face on the wall there. But a spear can get launched from left to right at you there. Right, this is the end of the level. Now, on the Amiga and the ST version, there is like more to the level, but that's missing on the 8-bit versions. But you saw earlier in the video there is Oh no, I'll shut up here. Right, next level, Egypt. Sometime later, Rick heads for the pyramids at the request of London. He is to recover the jewel of Ankel that has been stolen by fanatics who threaten to smash it if a ransom is not paid. Can Rick save the gem, or will he just get a broken Ankel? Oh dear. Oh, Simon, did you write that? Yeah, on Rick Dangerous 128 Plus, the remake version for the Amstrad 6128 Plus, that added in the extended levels, that the Amiga and ST had. So that was really cool. Go check that out. You can download it on the CPC Power website, Amstrad fans. And yeah, watch out for obvious spear trap there from the snake on the wall. You don't have to always like kill every enemy you come across, so I just avoided that one there. And you can use the spear traps to kill enemies as well. Now look very closely on that rock there. You see it's a little bit different than others. Well, there you go. You can poke it and it launches a spear to kill enemies. Now there should be another one coming down very shortly. And you can poke that one to shoot a spear upwards to kill that one. Yeah, again, it's something you just have to learn from experimenting the game and coming across it. So that's something that's like from experience. So that this is where like the sort of the memory test thing comes in that people moan about with Rick Dangerous. It's like, oh, Rick Dangerous is a memory test game. That sort of thing there, yes, I can understand that. And like knowing to go up the right hand ladder there rather than the left one. And also like here, the Egyptian level is a bit of a bugger really, like knowing to like wait for an extraordinarily long time here for that block to drop. And don't bother going down there either. Oh yeah, and a hidden climb up there. Well, actually, that's pretty obvious because there's a thing up there. Also, a spike comes out that block there. That's why I jumped very, very high over it. Yeah, the Egyptian level is a bit of a bugger. Now, remember in the interview earlier with Simon, he says, tip for game designers, always start with this designing your second level first. Because that's first of all, that's the level that you're going to get sick of most, and it's going to be the level you're going to spend the most time on. And you're kind of going to be over designing the second level and probably making it more harder than it needs to be. See, spike trap there coming out. How would you know that's going to be a spike trap there? Remember to duck there. I can't remember why. Oh, you have to go very quickly here because there's crushers. There you go. But yeah, you're kind of going to over-design your first level a little bit. So make your first level your second level. Again, how would you know? Well, I guess you have to have a bit of a leap of faith there. So your second level might end up being overly hard. But because you've like played it and played it and played it so much. Oh, I love that bit there. Shoot the sarcophagus and out comes a mummy. And takes out all the bad guys. I love this bit here. Here's the jewel, the Ankel, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I love this section here. Remember to jump there and stay in the middle. And the sparks take out all the guys here. Now, if you want to rack up an insane score, you could keep doing this bit over and over again, and the enemies respawn, and you can get like basically infinite score. So if you're in a high score competition and you're score chasing, the duel respawns, as do the bad guys. So just showing you again here, you can go back up the top there and get the bad guys to follow you up the ladder. There we go. Oh, yeah. 2 of them, maybe the third one. All 3 of them I think are coming up the ladder, and there's the duel again. There we go. We don't get the score for the duel, but we can kill those guys. It would take a long time to keep racking up score over and over and over again, but you could do that if you had the patience to do so and so inclined to. But there you go. There's a lot of like really like devious little traps in this level, like the spikes that just come out of random walls that have no pointers or clues, which could easily frustrate a lot of people. I can see why people do get frustrated of Rick Dangerous 1. I think less so on Rick Dangerous 2. I think it's a little bit better designed. In terms of like those frustrating like little spikes that just come out of walls that have no indication there will be a death there or whatever. Yeah, like for example here, just like you have to wait again a very, very long time on this block before it moves. There you go. And no to like duck down there. Now this one, very, very difficult here. You have to sort of like time your jump in between the spikes. That section there just killed me so many times, having to repeat the level just for that bit there. You have to jump in between the spikes being shot. Oh, guys and girls, I hate that bit. I hate that bit so much. And you have to move with the block moving here. So wait for it to start moving and push right, and then you can jump. Yeah, you can shoot a mummy there, but then you have to move in between the mummies. Oh, mummy! Oh, there's an Amsoft game. Now, I hate this little bit here. You're going to have to wait a while for this guy to start moving off below you. It's too risky to drop down. He might just suddenly move left into you. And you can move into that little alcove in the left there, but the hitboxes he might just touch you. Okay. Drop a dynamite there to blow the block away. You might take out the bad guy with you. Okay, just dropping down here. Go to the right hand route. Drop down and push right at the same time. Okay. Dynamite there. Okay. Taking a breather there to think. And I think we're coming towards the end of the level here. And it should loads of bullets for the 3 guys at the end. And there we go. Cool looking level there. Beautiful graphics. All right, Europe. Later that week, Rick receives a communique from British intelligence asking him to rescue Allied prisoners from the notorious Schwartz and Dumpf castle. Rick accepts the mission, but can he liberate the cruelly captured commandos? I didn't get a chance to say really, but I love the graphics on the Egyptian level there. I think those colours were absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. Immediately jump the dog at the start of this level. And you can set off the second dog whilst climbing on the ladder if you're very, very, very careful. But this looks really, really nice here as well. But I just love the use of colours on that Egyptian level. The Amstrad's colour palette used spectacularly there. That Egyptian level is the Amstrad's graphics at its best. And I think so here too. I think the castle level looks like really, really, really nice here. With the Amstrad's greys, reds and oranges and yellows used beautifully. There you go, using the stick there to stun a couple of German Nazis together and then blowing them up. Maybe we can get 3 here if we're really careful. You can actually just hold the stick out rather than just keep poking. But there we go, conserving some bullets and dynamite. But we do get a refill here. Let's see how many we could take out. 2. There we go. Fun. Good fun. Schwartz and Dumpf Castle. Maybe a little bit of reference to Schwarzenegger. I don't know. Will we get... Might be able to get 3 in a row here. I don't know. But yeah. Let's oh yeah, on this level there are doors that lead you to different parts of the castle. This one can be a little bit of a nightmare because later on the level you can go through a doorway and it leads you right back oh, took 3 out there. Nice. There's an exit or a doorway that can lead you right back to the bloody start of the level. So you might need to do some mapping, and enemies respawn as well. So, so yeah, that's not great. So, you know, there is a map on cpcpower.com website. So, oh, look, I love this bit here. Shoot the barrel. Yay! There you go. Great fun using the traps against the bad guys. Good stuff. Use the dynamite there. So yeah, so this level introducing some new stuff here with the doorways that lead to other parts of the level. That's not a doorway. So there you go. While we're doing this level, what shall we talk about? I mean, we've covered lots of stuff already earlier in the video about lots of interesting things about Rick. I mean, Simon's covered it in our interview and things like that. So let's talk about magazine reviews. So this was reviewed in the September 1989 issue 48 of Amstrad Action magazine. Just rescued some prisoners of war there. On this playthrough, actually, or long play, we're going to rescue all the prisoners of war in Schwartz and Dumpf Castle. There's 3 of them. And Amstrad Action magazine, they liked it quite a lot, awarding it their AA Rave Award, making special mention of its lovely graphics and great sense of humour in the sprites, animation and ARG sounds. They honestly didn't really offer up much, if any, real criticisms, strangely, in a rather overly upbeat, jolly and positive review from Emma Broadley. It's kind of refreshing and sweetly nice, really. No real mention of Rick's overly difficult hidden traps and memory test gameplay that people often moan about. Although the final score ended up being lower than expected after all that. So they rated the graphics at 92%, Sonic's 72%, grab factor 83%, staying power 85%, with an overall AA rating of 83%. After all that, it seems a little bit lower than expected, really. But there you go. Amstrad Action also later re-reviewed the Kicks budget re-release. Kicks, of course, was the budget label from US Gold, in the March 1992 issue 78, and gave it a whopping 93%. An extra 10% up on their full price review. There you go. Oh, that soldier's like rooted to the spot there. Oh, he's moving now. Huh, there you go. I don't know if that bugged out or not there. Well, there you are. As for my review, before we get started the last level, I do feel a little bit annoyed that it seems that the Amstrad version missed out on those little touches from a tiny bit of animation on the dynamite and a loading screen. I can live without the loading screen, maybe. To even a proper title screen. I'm a little sad it missed out on the animated cutscenes before the levels. But at least I suppose we've got the text screen telling us the story for each level. But maybe every last byte of RAM was used up trying to get Rick Dangerous 1 into one single tape load in 64K of RAM memory, which is impressive. But without a level select that the sequel had, I would have been happy loading up the levels separately in a multi-load. I think Amstrad Action were weirdly a bit low with their score despite their glowing review. So I'm going to go a little higher and give it 87%. Just over 8.5 out of 10, if you will. It would have been higher if all the aforementioned things were implemented. I'm not too fussed about the extended levels that the Amiga and ST versions had. The game is hard enough as it is, thank you very much, but I think the graphics are absolutely beautiful. I love the sprite design and animation, and that's all thanks to Simon. So I think in terms of the credits of the game, we got David Pridmore on the coding, also on the ZX Spectrum as well. I think he's done a fantastic job on the coding here. Yeah, you can see on the vertical sort of scroll, it's a little bit laggy. I'll come back to it in a second. We'll just finish the level. Europe. Even later, Rick learns from the prisoners that the enemy are to launch an attack on London from their secret missile base. Without hesitation, he decides to infiltrate the base. Can Rick save London in time? Well, will he? Well, of course he will. It's Rick. And it's my long play. So David Pridmore has done a great job on the coding here. Oh, it's slowing down just a touch. Bouncy floor here, by the way. A little bit. And I'm going to use the flames there to take out the bad guys. You can pick up those like rockets for points, but some of them will kill you, which is really annoying. I'm going to show you which rockets you can pick up for score and which ones to leave. I don't think you can shoot that guy over on the right, so just ignore him. So David Pridmore's done a great job on the coding. But he's learned some new tricks on Rick Dangerous too, because that has hardware scoring. Don't pick up that rocket bottom right there, that will kill you. So it's random which ones you can pick up and which ones will kill you. Annoying. Rob Toon and Bob Churchill did the design work and level design, and I think Simon Phipps, of course, contributed towards that. We've got Simon Phipps on the sprites, doing all the sprite work and graphics for that, so great job, Simon. And Terry Lloyd did all the background graphics, and they look sensational here as well. That rocket pickup will kill you, don't pick that up. Yeah, I think stick to as left as possible on the ladder there, from what I remember. Something might kill you if you're in the middle of the ladder. I can't remember now. That rocket there in the middle there will kill you, so don't pick that up. Keep ducked here, and the flames will take out that Nazi. But yeah, sound effects are really, really good as well. A little bit better on the sequel. Decent gun sound there. I like the wah is pretty well recreated on the AY chip. It would have been nice to have tunes in game, but like all the versions didn't have music in game. Relying on the sound effects, I think it works quite well. A bit difficult section here if you want to try and get take out all the bad guys. Use the last of the TNT there, dynamite, and then you can pick up some more there. But yeah, I think 87% seems about fair. It's not quite up to like 90%, I think. Just because I feel a little aggrieved that the Amstrad version got the least loved out the 8-bit versions and the 16-bit. It's like, did they rush it out the door a little bit? Or was it because the Amstrad version takes up the most amount of memory, because the screen memory takes up, is it 32K? out of the 64K of the available memory already, because it takes up more memory than the Spectrum version does, because of the Amstrad screen memory taking up so much of that usable RAM. Or something. I might be wrong on some bits there. This screen is really annoying because you have some flames that come out of the side walls there, and you have to know which bit of those side walls that happens on. You won't know unless you visited that room before that screen and died multiple times. So I can see why people get annoyed about Rick Dangerous at times. That's a perfect example of when I was asking Simon in the interview. People criticise the game and rant about it. What do you think to those criticisms and stuff? Does need a little bit more, perhaps hints about where those flames might come out and kill you. If you hadn't visited that screen before, you wouldn't know. Again, you wouldn't know that rocket down below at the bottom of that ladder. You can't pick that up. That would kill you. But the other rocket I picked up is fine. Gives you a bonus score. It's just pot luck of knowing. Or if you've been to the screen before and made a note of, that one I can pick up for score. Yeah. So a bit of a memory test. Yeah. All right, we're getting very close to the end now. Lovely graphics. Nice design on that, I guess, V2 rocket. If it's World War II. Yeah, you can always go off the screen and come back on again to reset the screen and objects if you made a mistake or whatever. A little tip there. Saving my gun ammunition and bullets. Oh, we're so close now. I was worried about a flame coming out there. See, even I'm forgetting little bits here and there. I'm getting a little bit nervous because I'm now right near the end. And I'll try to do this without losing a life. It is not easy to do. Okay, so close. I'm trying to remember as well where I need to drop. I knew there was some dynamite pickups there. Although we probably won't need it because I think I'm coming up to the last screen. Cheeky TNT to take out one of the last Nazis. Yeah, here we go. Here we are. Drop some TNT there. There we go. Blow up the base. And there we go. London. Much later, Rick returns to a triumphant welcome home, having helped secure Allied victory. But meanwhile, in space, the massed starships of the Barbarian Empire are poised to invade the Earth. What will Rick do next? And there we go. That is Rick Dangerous 1 completed and long played. There we go. So, there. My score was 87% for the Amstrad version of Rick Dangerous 1. A fantastic production, but it could have been a much better production if we had those animated cutscenes. A bit of animation on the TNT. Maybe a little bit of smoother scrolling on the vertical drops or jumps upwards. Could we have a bit of better title screen? Could we have a loading screen? I guess it was crammed into the. I guess the game was just crammed into the memory and ran out of space because it was like done in all one load. I would have happily accepted a multi-load for the levels because we don't have a level select like we do in Rick Dangerous 2, but hey-ho. Anyway, right, so that was Rick Dangerous 1, and it's time to move on to the sequel, Rick Dangerous 2. Alright then, this is a long playing review of Rick Dangerous 2 on the Amstrad CPC. Oh, look at this loading screen. That's nice. Of Simon Phipps's artwork. And look, we get a title screen now as well. So we didn't get a loading screen or a proper title screen on the first game, but on the sequel, at last on the Amstrad, we get both. And look at this bouncing, dropping down text. That's really nice. And listen to this like gorgeous music as well. Beautiful. I love it. And we get a level select as well. We can have and choose one of 4 levels to play. And we actually get 5 levels actually, instead of 4 of the first game. But level 5 can only be accessed after you've completed all 4 levels. But it's really neat that you can now select a level to play and practice from the title screen menu. However, you have to play them through in order, and it's advised that you do that because they do increase in difficulty, although I have found that the last level is slightly easier than the preceding one. Anyway, we're going to start off here. And before I move off the screen here, I'm going to let the jingle of music play out, because if I move off, the music actually stops. So level 1 is, the story goes, level 1, London, 1945. Rick returns home to rest after thwarting enemy plans to destroy London. All is not well, however. A mysterious fleet of strange alien spaceships has besieged the capital. Back in a flash, and as dangerous as ever, Rick heads for Hyde Park, the landing site of the strange alien craft. Why am I reading this out? Because sadly, the Amstrad version is missing the animated cutscenes of the 16-bit versions and the Commodore 64, which has it. The Spectrum version is missing the animated cutscene as well. And we're now going into the UFO after going through Hyde Park there. As you saw there a second ago, we now got sliding detonators. Yes. We now got a fist, a mighty fist instead of the stick. And yeah, you can now stun enemies. We got robots instead of, well, just like normal Gulus as we had in the first game, or Nazis. We've got 2 together there. And we've got an arrow pointing us towards clues there, and a switch on the wall to activate the lift. There we go. Duck down there for the laser. Now get like really nice laser blasting noise. And there's an arrow there pointing to the switch, but it's a troll, as we say now. We jumped up there, and look, there's 2 lasers on the ceiling. It's the other switch. Look at that. That's a bit naughty of them. You can actually jump past this robot and not shoot it if you don't want to. Going to conserve your ray gun, because we now have a ray gun instead of a pistol, electronic detonators instead of dynamite, and later on Rick gets to ride on a anti-gravity bike. Yes, we will have vehicle sections in the game, which is a new thing introduced for the sequel. And look, there's the sliding bombs, which was a suggestion from the producer, Tim, I think his name was. So just for credits quickly in the game, we've got David Pridmore still on coding duties, both on the Amstrad and the ZX Spectrum version, and also doing sound effects and music on all versions of the game, across the 16-bit and 8-bit versions of the game. Terry Lloyd doing the background graphics on all versions of the game, and Simon Phipps on all sprites, and also coding duties on the Atari ST and Amiga. Wow, what a busy boy as well. And I believe still Rob Toon and Bob Churchill on design work and level design, which is much improved. Much improved. We'll talk about that as we go through. So yeah, first thing to notice actually on the Amstrad version is we now have a much smoother scroll. Look at that as we move up the screen. We now have a smooth vertical scroll using hardware scrolling, and the same on the horizontal scroll. Look how it transitions. Same on the vertical scroll. It is now using hardware scrolling, unlike Rick Dangerous 1. Now, on Rick Dangerous 1, on the horizontal, well, there wasn't any horizontal scroll. It just, like, refreshed to the next screen. So it would just quickly blank out, and then you'd see the screen pop up when you moved horizontally to the next screen. And when you moved vertically, you had like a software scroll. And it looked a bit lagged and a low frame rate. You could see it kind of sort of struggling. And it didn't look very nice at all. So what David has done here, I think, is used like the CRTC chip, which is the video chip inside the Amstrad. And I presume he's used like the registers, which is R3 and R5. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone knowledgeable in the chat, in the comments. And use R3 and R5 registers to do like a hardware scroll. Which is very difficult to do, actually. But he's pulled it off. And now we get that nice, fast, smooth scroll. It only moves like a little bit, but it's nice. And it's something that isn't done on the ZX Spectrum because it doesn't have the same video chip, but the Amstrad does, and it can pull it off. That's something the Amstrad version does have over the Commodore 64. Sorry, over the ZX Spectrum. The C64, of course, has inbuilt hardware scrolling, and the vertical scroll moves with Rick all the time, which is a bit nicer. It works quite well here on the Amstrad, definitely. So there you go. Look, there's the horizontal scroll on the go, and that is a massive improvement. The Commodore 64 version doesn't do this on the horizontal. In fact, the C64 version has this nasty blackout for like nearly a second as it like tries to redraw and refresh itself, moving horizontally off a screen. That's a massive sort of almost black mark on the C64 version. It just like screen just like disappears for like nearly a second when you move off horizontally. Wasted a laser bolt there. So yeah. So whilst on one hand, C64 moving vertically all the time, that is really, really nice, and actually probably sort of puts it above the other 8-bit versions. But then moving horizontally, the screen just disappears, like goes blank and black for like nearly a second while it thinks about redrawing the screen and refreshing. It looks nasty. Whereas the Amstrad version, no, not a problem. Scrolls vertically and horizontally as you move with Rick when it needs to. So just for a quick shoom and shoom, very nice, very nice. So I mean, I'm impressed with the Amstrad version here, as you can tell, and I think graphically it looks the nicest. Some might say it's all it's subjective, personal preference, and beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and all that all those cliches and phrases and stuff. Personally, and I am biased because I grew up with the Amstrad, I think it looks the nicest. Some might say it's a bit blocky and all that kind of stuff, but I think the Amstrad's colour palette here. Oh, let's see if we can get 3 robots here. Punching away. I didn't manage to do it. You can get 3 of them if that orangey robot. He does come across, but never mind. Well, I think we can get a laser bolt refill shortly. As you can tell, that I knew that laser was going to blast as I get that. That green thing pick up there is just for points. You don't have to get it if you don't want to. Wondering if that laser's going to shoot me. Actually, I think you can press that button to shoot the robot. There you go. Trying to remember everything here. And you can get that other one as well. But yeah, I think the Amstrad version looks really nice graphically. Lovely use of colours. I wasn't so impressed by the Rick sprite on the C64 version this time. If you look earlier in the video, I think it had the best Rick sprite on Rick Dangerous 1, the C64. It can do like a nice high-res sprite. I think it looks pretty decent on the ZX Spectrum, actually, the Rick 2 sprite. But I think it looks pretty good here on the Amstrad. And the background graphics look really super here. Nice use of colours. I think the Amstrad has it on the graphics here as well. Sound effects and music, but they're good on all versions, and all 8-bit versions specifically. I think it's a tie in the sound effects and music, but I think the sound effects generally on Rick Dangerous 2 just sound that bit better compared to Rick Dangerous 1. Those laser blasts sound really, really good. I think they're almost in stereo as well. It's kind of hard to tell. I don't know if it's like an emulator thing. A review in Amstrad Action magazine noted they go from like left to right across stereo speakers. I'm trying to tell if they do actually do that on my headphones, but not sure they do or not. Just trying to listen there. But anyway, yeah, the sound effects sound really good. That laser blast, you have to jump over the top of the laser blast there. That is like the hardest bit of the first level. So well done if you can do that there. There you go. Didn't quite press the button. And a lift and jump across there. Nice. Leave those 2 buttons there. Ha! Robot got taken out there. And we're very near the end of the level. And go to the ladder nearest the laser. And there you go. There's the fat guy appearing in the monitors there. He's laughing at us there. The git. And we're going to come on to level 2. Right, level 2. Right, obviously no cutscene, so I'll read out what the other versions have for the cutscene. Rick seizes controls of the strange alien spaceship and takes off, heading for the mysterious planet Barth and the Fat Guy's headquarters. However, the Fat Guy was never particularly generous with fuel, forcing Rick to crash land over the desolate ice kingdom of Frisia. So yeah, the ice planet of Frisia we're on now. And we get something new introduced here. Frisia introduces ice and slippery platforms. So each level introduces something new and different. Like level 3 on Vegetablia on the jungle planet, and we get like high treetops and multiple routes, including a secret route. The secret route will be like the shortest route will be the arguably the deadliest. In fact, on that, when we get to that level, I will do 2 different runs on that, and I'll sort of like I will have like basically 2 runs through that. So I will sort of reload and have like 2 parts to that. So I'll show you 2 different ways through that on the video. And level 4 in the Atomic Mud Mines introduces mine carts and mud on the floor that bogs you down and slows Rick. Well, we haven't even talked about Rick's anti-gravity bike, which we will see introduced on this level later on. Got ice showers and ice blocks. This is a really difficult section because you've got to get a dynamite in between those 2 ice bits there. So that's one of the toughest bits on the level. You've got to be in the right position for Rick there So that's often a bit there that often kills most players. So it's very, very tough there. I think that is definitely a section just below our feet there where you need to have like maybe experienced the game before and had a little practice. So that's maybe the first bit really where it becomes memory test. And also knowing where those stalactites fall down from. Another section where you may have to have like, played the level a bit before to know where some things are. Otherwise, you have to maybe just go very cautiously through the level. As a top tip, there is no time limit in Rick Dangerous. 1 or 2. So move slowly. Just utch your way through the level. Oh, god damn it. Wasting electronic detonators. Nearly called them TNT. So you don't have to race through Rick Dangerous. Just move little bit by little bit. I mean, sometimes you do have to move quickly. Like these things are coming at you, so you might have to move quickly through the through a screen at times. Otherwise, you can stand still and think about what's coming up ahead, and move slowly, bit by bit, and go, "Oh, there's a thing dropping down on my head," and move back out the way. You don't need to race and run through a screen or a level. And look around. Oh, there's a switch over there. I wonder what that does. You know, and look down below. Oh, look, there's a snowball machine. So you know that you're gonna have to drop. Or that one, you know, you're not gonna be able to duck under it. So you know when you drop down, you're gonna need to be jumping almost immediately. So you can plan ahead. Okay. Yeah, spikes coming out walls there. There's less of that kind of nonsense from the first game. I think the frustrations of the first game were random spikes coming out walls. Which you couldn't really kind of plan for. Which was really annoying, really. There was an overabundance of just random spikes coming out of walls, which weren't telegraphed. There weren't any clues for spikes coming out of walls. A lot of the traps, there were kind of like little hints and like clues of like where the traps were, but like spikes coming out walls, there's no clue for that, apart from you might get a sixth sense of like, well, dropping down here seems a little convenient that there might be a spike coming out of a wall there. You might get a sort of a sixth sense there might be a spike coming out of a wall in some certain situations. So, there's less of that kind of spikes coming out of walls, certain walls in Rick Dangerous. Like, you know, that right wall there, you just press the button to get rid of the spikes there. So it's highly likely the wall to the right, where you just got rid of the spikes on the left wall, there's likely to be a spiked wall. Otherwise, why would you have pressed the button to get rid of the spikes on the left wall, and there's a free wall gap? Sorry. What? I could just go through the empty gap, but I've just pressed a button to get rid of the spikes, blocking the route on the left gap. If you know what I mean. So, why would I have gone to the effort to get rid of those when I could just gone down the empty gap? That must be a death trap. You know, that's obvious. Count the showers here. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Move. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, we're coming up to an anti-gravity bike section. You can see 2 of them there, waiting to be picked up. So if you go back and shoot that, that removes the spikes there for a little room full of goodies down here. Little secret area. Not really too secret. Frozen penguin. There's some detonator pickups there, so might as well use a detonator to destroy that. There we go. Job done. Making good progress here. Unfortunately, enemies do respawn when you come back on the screen, but it does mean the screens reset if you do make a mistake. Oh, here we go on the anti-gravity bike. Wonder if this was inspired by Turrican or something. I don't know. Had Turrican come out by then? Shoot the switch there to disable the snow machine. I was firing a little bit too quickly to get by. You can't drop electronic detonators while on the gravity bike, but you can shoot the ray gun. But it does use up your ammunition, so you gotta be careful. Only a short section there on the bike, but we do get to ride it again on level 4, the atomic mud mines. And I think on level 5, the Fat Guy's headquarters. So, yeah. Here we go. End of the level. Brilliant. Alright, so level 3. Rick attempts to teleport directly to the Fat Guy's headquarters, but he fails and instead arrives deep in the forest kingdom of Vegetabilia. Sorry for pronunciation there. So, on the first run of this, we're going to go on the shortest, fastest, but deadliest route. And then I'm going to show you the longest route. Up here, there's a secret route this way. Look, you can actually climb up here. And that's probably the middle, kind of like medium-sized route. Second fastest, or second longest route. Spikes there. Maybe that's a little hint. Get the treasure and then jump up. Yeah. This level probably is the most annoying with random spikes and random falling things. Actually, more so with the random spikes. I think that it does signpost a little bit of the falling objects. Oh, this bit is great. The rolling boulder. Drop down here to get all the enemies on the floor. Haha, and he can get revenge with the rolling boulder, which plagued Rick in the first game. There you go. So if you go this lower route, it's the shortest route. Stay here, wait for the rolling boulder, and it will drop down through there. There you go. Yeah, so there's a lot of random spikes coming out of places like there. And there's a little switch on the wall there. Can you see those two little red bits on the tree trunk? They're quite hard to make out. But that is a switch in the tree, trunk. And we might be able to bunch 3 of these guys together and take them out with a electronic detonator. Ah! Oh, he just turned around at the last second there. Never mind. There's a branch up there, so we're just trying to set the branch off. So, oh, and one came out the wall there. Just avoided it. So yeah, this level is a bit of a swine actually. And random tree logs rolling out at us. Thankfully, they stopped spawning. Rick just popping out the top there. There we go. Nice looking level on the Amstrad here. Nice colourful graphics. Obviously, those spikes coming down are pretty obvious to see. That might happen. There we go. Huh. Yeah, random spikes out the floor there. Again, have a good look around your surroundings. It was very easy to miss that branch that would have fallen down there. You have to go round, under, and over the top there. And actually, this is the end of the level here, believe it or not. There's a random leaf that comes down. How would you have known that, eh? There's a switch at the top there to get the branch to fall down. There's actually a hidden item just under there. I forgot about it. You can actually go inside there to get a hidden item. And there you go. That is the end of the level for a short way through. So we're going to reload back and go through level 3, and I'm going to show you the normal longer main routes through Vegetabilia. Set off the boulder here and show you most of the whole level here, so you can see what the actual rest of the level looks like as well. So we did it way too quickly, I suppose. It would be nice to see what the rest of the graphics look like for the rest of the level and all that kind of stuff. I suppose whilst we do this, let's have a look at what the magazine said at the time then. So, as always, we look for the review in the main Amstrad magazine of the day. And this is actually kind of interesting. So this was reviewed in the November 1990 issue 62 of Amstrad Action magazine. And they clearly loved it. Wait until you hear the final overall score. It was awarded the coveted Master Game Award, praising it for being a very polished product, saying a tremendous amount of work has gone into the game design, graphics and sound. Also picked up in the review, which actually I missed, is the stereo sound. But then a game like Rick Dangerous 2 is going to be well appreciated when the reviewer is Adam Waring, who he himself is a published game coder with games like Ninja Massacre for Codemasters and Lost Caves for players. He can see the quality in not just the coding, but in the game design and all the other little bits. So that's good. Some of the reviewers in Amstrad Action magazine, though, at the time or before Adam Waring's day, left a little bit to be desired. Some of them, like Trenton Webb, not my favourite reviewer. Thankfully, when I started reading Amstrad Action, he had long since departed. But reading old back issues, some of his reviews left a lot to be desired. Anyway, but yeah, when someone's a bit more knowledgeable about games and what goes into them, it's always good to see, like Mr. Waring. And that might explain the whopping high score that Adam gave the game. And someone, another coder, appreciates another good coder's game, because he rated the graphics at 96%. Sonic's 94%, grab factor 98%, stain power 97%, with an overall AA rating of 97%. That is the highest score in Amstrad Action magazine history ever, with only Lemmings, I believe, getting the same score. Wow. Wow. Yikes. Do you know what? I mean, it's a bit early in the video for me to be doing this, seeing as we're going through this level. Shall I give my review now? Yeah, go on then. I mean, I'll go for it now. Yeah, why not? I mean, this feels much improved, or a bit apart from a little bit of slowdown here. Oh, actually, no. Let's leave it, actually. Because this is the end of... this is actually the end of the level, actually. There you go. There's the hidden item I was telling you about. It's just a score item. There we go. So, level 4. Rick heads for the atomic mud mines beneath the fat guy's headquarters. Oh, now we get this green slime. We get the mine carts, which you have to be exactly on top of, a pixel slightly to the left or right of them, and you touch the sides and you die. We get these like green fists that come out the ground. You have to blow that up. On the atomic mud mine level, essentially, it kind of, there is actually 2 different routes you can go in this game. Oh, there's a hidden area here. You have to rescue the miners in this level. They're kind of obscured by the foreground objects here of the mine. They're a little bit more obvious later on in the level. Here you can have a choice. You can either go to the right here, or you can just go down. To the right is a more harder route, but more points to be scored from rescuing miners. I feel like I want to be more of a completionist here and rescue the miners. I guess they're kind of like captive, held captive by the fat guy or something. I don't know. It doesn't say anything in the cutscene or the manual about captive miners or anything like that. This is a much harder route. Now, that enemy to the right walking left to right is one of the hardest things in the game. I have to time him, so I'll go right here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. He's on the left now, walking right. 1, 2, 3. So I'm doing this count in my head because I'm going to have to jump down here. So I'm still counting in my head to try and work out where he is. Do you see? Because I have no idea what position he's in. I almost got it wrong there because I jumped down when he was almost in the middle of his walking pattern. That's ridiculous, that. As you can see, I'm sort of stuck to the floor there. It's hard to know which floor is sticky with mud or not. There's one of the miners to rescue. Now, it doesn't have the bull crap, nearly swore, trying to keep it family friendly, of the first game where some objects you pick up are deadly and some are not for score. Well, like the last level Rick Dangerous one, where some of the rockets you can pick up for score and some will kill you. Thankfully, they made the decision to change that. Blow up that barrel there to move it into position, and you can then jump on the ladder. Click the switch there to move the lift down. So yeah, there we go. So yeah, shall I do my review now before we get to the last level? Oh, look at that, the sprite had glitched there. It was in like a death animation pose. Anyway, yeah, I think I'll give my review now, actually. So, as I was starting to say, I think this feels much improved over the first game. Actually, it definitely is much improved over the first game. Not just technically, but in design too. Firstly, from a coding point of view, you can see David Pridmore now has it scrolling horizontally between screens, something the Spectrum version doesn't do, which he also coded. And it's nice to see that the Amstrad version has been given a lot more love this time round. I mean, here David has used the Amstrad CRTC video chip and its registers to do hardware scrolling to give a nice transition between Rick's static screens. It just gives a much nicer, pleasant experience. Similarly, moving vertically is doing the same thing. We've got hardware scroll there too. On the first game, it was a software scroll, and it looked a bit lagged and low frame rate. And the Amstrad sequel just looks very polished, and arguably the best looking graphics out of the free 8-bit versions. The music is sensational, as it is across all the versions anyway, and the same with the sound effects. It's definitely a step up from the first game too. Shame we're missing again the cutscenes before the levels, but we can't have everything. I think it's missing it because again they fitted it all into one single tape load into 64K of RAM and memory. Again, like I said on my review of the first game, I wouldn't have minded a multi-load on tape, but they wanted to do the level select. So I understand why this time round, unlike Rick Dangerous 1. Oh well, we can't have everything if it's missing the cutscenes, but at least this time round we have a loading screen and a nice title screen and music there. I just feel a lot more time and effort has gone into the Amstrad version, and it shows. But going back to level design, the annoyances of the first game where you had no idea of hidden spikes in walls, where there'll be no clue or markers in the later levels, this has been way toned down, and it's a much more enjoyable game for it. Oh, we're coming up to another atomic... what's it called? I forget the name of the bloody thing. Anti-gravity bike section. Oh, you always get that name of the bloody thing wrong. Yeah, it's just a lot more enjoyable for it. A lot of these hidden enemies, apart from here, hidden traps and stuff that are a lot more signposted and less frequent, and it's just a much more enjoyable experience for it. So yeah. I don't think it justifies Amstrad Action's ridiculous score, but it's definitely in the 90% range. But maybe just over it, over the 90%, due to some people still being put off by its difficulty and it lacking the cutscenes. So, where am I going to go for with my score? I'm somewhere like 92 or 93%. I'm going to flip a coin between the two. I was going to go 92, but I'm. Do you know what? I don't think you can get much better quality than this on the Amstrad, really, or much 8-bit systems. Do you know what? I want to go for 93%. So just over a 9 out of 10. I really can't see you getting a much better quality game on the Amstrad, really. Well, can you? I mean, can you think of a much better platformer on the Amstrad? Sure, this is a really, really tough game, but you need it. You need a challenge in a game, and this, if you put the time and effort in to learn it, it's definitely beatable. I mean, God damn it! I started work on this game many months ago. And you can see it's definitely beatable. You just got to put the time and effort in. On the other hand, if you have to pump a game full of lots of lives, you start with 6 and get an extra one each level. Maybe you've made it too hard. You might want to argue back, but so I do understand people's frustration. But being able to select a level to practice is a nice quality of life improvement. But this is definitely one of the best platformers on the Amstrad and hardest. But I don't see you getting a much better quality game on the Amstrad, really, in terms of a platformer. But yeah, maybe a little tweak on the difficulty, extra the cutscenes added in, a little bit of extra presentation. And maybe a proper scroll between levels, screens and stuff, and you would have seen a higher score. But I think 93%, I think is pretty reasonable. So there you go. I think we're not far off the end of the level here. I think this might be like the final screen, actually. I've lost where I am. Yeah, this is the last screen of this level. And then we're on to the final level, boys and girls. Blooming heck. Yeah, you have to drop a bomb while moving there. That's a really tough little bit there. Here we go. So level 5. Rick sneaks inconspicuously into the fat guy's headquarters. That was all the text you got on the cutscene on the 16-bit versions. I'm just going to let the music play out here before I drop a bomb on that. Oh, there you go. On that little platform there, the little block. Not so hidden, really. Watch out for the spikes coming down from the ceiling here. Just have to sort of set them off and move quickly. Watch out for that mouse. I think they're like clockwork mice, I think, here. Or are they real mice? I don't know. You don't see the little wind-up thing, so they're not clockwork mice. Alright. Lots of lasers now on this level. You can set a laser off to kill that guy there. Jewels or diamonds to pick up points. Anti-gravity lifts, I presume. Yeah, a bit of slowdown there, sadly. It's not too bad. You want to nitpick things, you can say that. To make things easier to take these guys out, you can get them to sort of like come up the anti-gravity lift. There they go. Oh, here's one anyway. Fully enough, the detonator will stay on the lift as well. So even your bombs obey like the physics on the level as well. There we go. So just take your time. You can sort of manipulate the enemies as well to your will if you have patience. There we go. I was patient there for him to come down to me. Oh, notice the spike there on the right-hand side. There's a bit of a clue. When you come down the right-hand side, you're going to have to watch out for those spikes coming out and time yourself going between them. Slide a bomb there and then get down the ladder as quick as you can. Yeah, I knew that was good. So you can anticipate that block sliding to the left. That was very close there. Remember the spikes? Actually, they're on sort of a timer there. There we go. And yeah, we actually get a boss battle on this level. We didn't get a boss battle on the Rick Dangerous 1. We actually get to fight... Oh, nice explosions here. We actually get to fight the fat guy. Oh, anti-gravity bike time here. Just move like straight away at the start of this screen. That's really tough there. I think, again, for this one, I just made notes, and it's just from like knowing what to do there after practice. Again, I think this section, this anti-gravity bike, those first few screens is like knowing from practicing of what to do. From having experienced it. So yeah, I think some sections on this level really are a little bit a case of like, yeah, memory test. Hopefully, or at least hopefully, you've arrived here with a few lives in tow. I like some of these rooms. You can blow up the power generators, shall we call them? And lots of big explosions happening. Fantastic stuff. This screen is a bit of a bugger because you've got to jump over those two mice at the top there. You've got to squeeze through that middle platform, so you have to jump back and forth to get the right timing. That looks harder than it is. It's hard to describe. You've got to jump over that second mouse as it's coming back at you. You can take out. All right, okay. Slidey bomb. There we go. Sometimes you can take out nearly all the guys in the room with only one bomb blowing up the power generator there, or whatever it's called. There's a guy moving back and forth in the lift there, so if you drop the bomb, you land on the lift below. So you've got to be in the right position and drop a slidey detonator at the right time. So it's hard to do. So go out the room and come back again. Oh, he's respawned. If you're not sure you got the right timing there and the right position. So yeah, go the top route here. Again, that's just having the knowledge of having previously been in this room. I think I find this level a little bit easier than the atomic mud mines, but I think there are certainly a few rooms here that you need sort of prior knowledge of. There is some spikes that come out there where I've just been. You can actually get through this room here without killing anyone, or without using any of your lasers. See there? Take out the entire room with just one bomb. One detonator, sorry. Look at that. There you go. And we are very, very near the end of the game now. I think like basically 2 or 3 screens left. Now this feels like this screen feels like a screen from the Egyptian level from Rick Dangerous 1. There you go. Up we go. And I think the fat guy is waiting for us just above. There he is. There's the fat guy just over to the right of the screen there. And we're about to have a boss battle to complete Rick Dangerous 2. Some pickups there. Don't blow them up accidentally. He's ran off. He's about to get in his little mini spaceship. And boss battle time. You can actually get a bigger score if you just use your detonators to destroy his spaceship. But you can do some damage with your ray gun first. Give you a bit more breathing room. To be honest, wait till he's in this position there and then do a slidey bomb. So when he's in his like top left position there, that's when you want to do your slidey bomb. But the more ray guns you have left, the higher your score will be at the end, because it counts up how much things you have. There you go. There he goes flying out. And that is Rick Dangerous 2 completed. Here we go. Hey! And so Rick saves the day by defeating the fat guy and his fleet of robot starships. What will Rick do next? So it was teasing a third game, which sadly never happened. Well, will one day someone pick up the Rick Dangerous license and make a new Rick game? Well, you never know. It's doubtful. It is doubtful. It's, as Simon said in his interview, it's locked somewhere down a vault somewhere. who knows what's happened to it. It could happen, you never know. But it was never to be, back in the day at least anyway. But there you go. A nice little jingle of music for the completion screen. And there's the game over jingle. I don't know if that's glitched or not, actually, with the game over bounce with that sort of red thing behind it. I don't think that was supposed to happen. But there you go. That was Rick Dangerous 2 on the Amstrad CPC. I'll give it a score of 93%. What would you rate the game? And that is the end of my epic, mega Rick Dangerous video. Thank you ever so much for watching. If you've made it all the way through this far, wow, this has been many weeks and months in the making. It's probably one of my biggest videos ever. So thank you all my patient Am Squad and Patreon supporters. I hope this was worthwhile, and thank you everyone supporting the channel for this time. If you enjoy this content like this, I want to see more of it, please do consider supporting me on Patreon and joining the Am Squad. And I just want to give one last big thank you to Simon Phipps. Thanks for watching, and see you again soon. Goodbye. Bye.
So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please click a like below, leave a comment, and also subscribe if you haven't already. And over that way, there's another video for you to check out. Zypho, out.